You need to hit join audio.
Ladies, you all set over there? We're good to go. Good evening, everyone. I have 6:01, so I will open up tonight's Mashpee Conservation Commission meeting for Thursday, December 7th, 2023. Tonight, we are meeting in the Wacoyet Meeting Room, Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North. Our meeting is being broadcast live on local cable channel 8 and also streamed live on the Town of Mashpee website. Before we begin, if you would like to join me in a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sandy, would you knock it off?
Seeing it is December 7th, I'm going to begin tonight's meeting with a moment of silence for all of the victims at Pearl Harbor back in 1941. Thank you. We will begin tonight with public comment, so if there is anyone here or online that would like to address the commission for any issues that are not related to agenda items for this evening's meeting. Do we have any comment? Nobody here, nobody online? Dan?
One person just joined. Waiting for him to get the audio. Doesn't seem so far.
No? Okay, then we will just proceed. I am going to skip over the pre- and post-hearing agenda items and go directly to tonight's hearings. So we will start with the 6 o'clock hearing for 108 Captain's Row, Nicholas M. and Kathy M. DeGristo, proposed raise and replace embankment, steps, and deck. Representative is McAllister Marine Construction. This hearing is continued from 7/27, 8/10, 9/7, and 11/2. It's a request for determination of applicability. And I believe we have another request for continuance.
Yeah, they're requesting a continuance based on the engineered plan. It's just being finalized this week, so it wasn't ready for presentation tonight.
Okay. And which hearing would this be moved to? January
January 25th
25?
at 6:30 PM.
Yep,
Now,
so
the-
moved.
Is
I'll
it-
second.
Second? Any discussion? I guess the plans are not ready. These are the plans that we requested, so.
Correct.
Okay, then.
But they've only had 2 continuances?
Oh, there's been more than that. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the 5th. But the
Aren't we
hangup,
supposed to do something on the 3rd?
well, the hangup is we requested a set of engineered drawings for this project. And they've had a difficult time first securing an engineer to do the work and now getting the work. So the delay is really based on our request for additional information.
All right.
So I think we can foresee the three down, you're out rule. Okay? As long as you're all right with that, but you can vote however you.
No, not at all.
Any other discussion? Okay,
I'm trying to be a good parliamentarian.
I'll call for a vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries unanimously. So that's January
25th.
25. What was the time on that?
That'll be at 6:30, and that'll be our first hearing that will be starting at 6:30. from then on.
I was going to talk about that 6 o'clock, 6:30 startup time during our discussions. Okay. First one was easy, Alex.
Yeah, let's.
Moving on, 6:03. Now calling the 6:03 hearing for 70 Alma Road, Patrick and Julie McNamara. This is a proposed raise and replace single-family dwelling with new IA septic upgrade, landscaping, and hardscaping. The representative is Cape and Islands Engineering, and this is a notice of intent. Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicants and property owners for this application and this property, Mr. Patrick and Julie McNamara. The project is to completely raise the existing dwelling and the deck on the back of the house and the 2 sheds that exist in the backyard of this property. Remove the existing paved driveway and replace it with a new single-family development. The only wetland resource area within the property or within 150 feet of the property is land subject to coastal storm flowage. The elevation of the flood zone is elevation 13, and it bisects the property very close to halfway through the property. So approximately 3,145 square feet of the property is in land subject to coastal storm flowage. And looking at the image is what Dan is highlighting over, which is the southeast corner of the property. So from this land subject to coastal storm flowage, what's being removed is the 2 existing sheds, the existing Title V septic system in the flood zone, and almost the entire deck, or a good portion of the entire deck that exists in the flood zone, and the paved driveway. In its place, there's going to be this new proposed house, no increase in bedrooms. The existing dwelling is a 2-bedroom dwelling. The proposed dwelling is a 2-bedroom dwelling. The existing house has a basement, but the new house will not have a basement. It will be in conformance with building in the flood zone regulations. The driveway, although the narrative called out a proposed paved driveway, we informed the client that per Mashpee regulation, it has to be a pervious surface, and they agree. They will do a pervious driveway. There is an existing apron, and they will reconstruct an apron for the first portion of the driveway, but the rest of the driveway into the flood zone will be a pervious surface. So overall, the site is less than 5,000 square foot within the flood zone. So based on the regulations of the flood zone for natural vegetative buffer strips or areas, there is no trigger of this project for preserving the naturally vegetated buffer strip. But there is a limit of work around the north and behind the sheds that practically protects what natural vegetation exists there. So that limit of work follows the existing edge of vegetation. And if I can probably use this correctly without taking anybody's eyes out. Yeah, I probably can't see it from here. But yeah, it follows the existing edge of vegetation behind the sheds. And it follows then on the south side of the sheds, the existing vegetation. And then it cuts back a little bit for the proposed driveway. So there's a portion of the driveway that will require some clearing of about 2 feet of an existing strip of vegetation along that southern section of the driveway. Currently, the house does not have dry wells. The existing roof runoff just discharges to surface. The proposed development will have dry wells to accommodate for roof runoff. The septic system that's on site is just a Title V septic system located in the flood zone. The proposed septic system is above the flood zone, and it will be an enhanced nitrogen-reducing septic system. If we compare alternative system with nitrogen-reducing components to a non-enhanced nitrogen-reducing system, we go from a nitrogen loading of 12 to 10. So there is a reduction in the nitrogen loading. More specifically, going from 12.9, which is closer to 13, to 10.9, closer to 11. In terms of impervious areas or development in the flood zone, with the pervious driveway, we're going from 977 square feet of areas existing to 942 square foot areas proposed. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Could I have those figures again, Raul?
So the nitrogen loading without an alternative reducing system is 12.9 parts per million.
Yep.
With an IA system is 10.9 parts per million.
Okay.
No increase in septic flow because we're keeping 2 bedrooms.
And the comparative figures for the footprint of
So yes,
pre and post?
the existing sheds, the house, the paved driveway and deck, 977 square feet in the flood zone. And the proposed house within the same footprint of the flood zone, 942 square feet.
Thank you.
We do recognize that in the narrative, we did call out that the proposed driveway was going to be paved, but a condition that it will be pervious is acceptable by the applicant.
Okay. Thank you. Questions from commissioners?
Raul, I know it's right in front of my face, but I can't find the square footage of the new proposed dwelling, total square footage. I know there was mention that you're not adding any bedrooms,
Right.
but it appears as though there's quite a bit of square footage being added. But I can't find the number. Do you know it?
Not off the top of my notes here.
That sort of goes to one of my questions, Raul. I'm seeing different numbers on the tables here, and I'm just questioning, are these correct or not? Because you have a note, it said lot area of 7392 square footage. But down the table, you have 3,020 for existing proposed. And then you have, under note 3, but underneath the zoning table, you have existing lot coverage 17.9%, proposed 26%. But then you have coverage at existing 43.7, and then proposed at 63.4. So that goes with Marjorie's question. I'm a little confused with some of these numbers here.
So yeah, it is confusing. It derives from the new zoning requirements for what counts as lot area for the purpose of lot coverage. If we recall, practically for this entire year, 2023, the zoning lot coverage area for a property is that area that is above the flood zone for the purpose of lot coverage. So the entire lot is 7,392 square feet. That's the entire lot, defined by the property lines. But of that, 3,100 or whatever square foot is in the flood zone. So for the purpose of lot coverage purpose with zoning, we cannot count that south east corner of the property. So we are stuck with, based on elevation, the existing 3,020 square feet above the flood zone. And after the grading, we're slightly grading elevation 13 for the driveway. So we end up with a proposed 3,039 square feet above the flood zone. So those are the areas to use for lot coverage purpose.
Okay, because that wasn't called out here. So-
Right, it's intended for zoning, but those are numbers that we have to play with today. If the entire lot was in the flood zone, that number will be 0.
Yeah, but when you have the 3,020 number and then the second number to add up to the 7392, to make
No.
it clear?
No. Those are both different numbers of areas above the flood zone. On the plan, if you see the proposed driveway and you see the existing elevation 13 and the proposed elevation 13,
Bless you.
there's a slightly change from the elevation 13. So there's a portion that is being filled for the driveway that adds approximately another 20 square feet above the flood zone.
Okay, I understand. So going back to Marjorie's question, what is the footprint size of the existing building versus the footprint size of the proposed building?
Yep. Let me,
Okay.
so the existing structures are roughly 1,320 square feet. And the proposed structure is 1854 approximately.
You including all the decks and porches?
So yeah, that's structures. Decks and porches are included in structures.
My math does, I don't think it covers the porches there, Raul. I don't think. Because I just did the quick math on the length and width, and I got 1890 without the porches. It's 500. It's like a 40% increase, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I did the calculation again. I still come with 1854.
Okay. And is it a two-story or a one-story?
I don't have that answer. I would suspect it's two-story because they lose all the square footage of the available basement. So for all the storage that they would need, I would think it's two-story, but I don't have that answer.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, at the risk of raising an issue that we've gone over a couple of times with some consternation, I believe this is within the purview of the Conservation Commission, but I'm not 100% certain that it's not on the Board of Health that has jurisdiction over square footage vis-à-vis a septic and the whole placement of it. Because if they're going from roughly 1,300 square feet to roughly 1,900 square feet, and they're just keeping it a two-bedroom, that's about a, I don't know, 400% increase in square footage. And so the use of that, I know it's not under the purview of the Conservation Commission, but the relationship between square footage, bedrooms, and septic does. Right? So is there anything that we have from the Board of Health that shows, yeah, we're cool with this? Because I don't see it mentioned here.
It has not been reviewed by the Board of Health yet.
It does say the property is deed restricted to 2 bedrooms, though.
It does.
Yeah, that's always what bothers me, is that we sort of kick the can down the road. So a two-bedroom has to stay a two-bedroom, but you can add another 500 square feet. What's that gonna be in terms of fannies in the,
Well, as the
House.
representative mentioned, they're going to lose storage capability in the existing basement, so they could probably be using the extra square footage in the home for storage. They can't go beyond 2 bedrooms because it's deed restricted. And any of the septic infrastructure has to be approved by the Board of Health. That's strictly in their purview.
that is, yeah.
So I don't think there's any concerns on our part as to some of the extra square footage at some point becoming another bedroom, another increase in flow. I just don't see that because of the deed restriction.
Yeah, I know, but what's it take for a den to be a bedroom? I don't mean to be a pain in the butt, but, you know, these are the things that residents of the town
Yep.
ask. Why didn't you guys concern yourself with this ever-increasing, the concern, and it's a valid concern.
Sure.
Ever-increasing square footage that's not reflected in the requirements for the septic and the and the whole nitrate issue. I don't know, it bothers me.
Yeah.
So I raise it so that it may be on the table. Don't take it personally, Raul,
Part of the record.
but, you know, I
Sure.
think it's an issue.
Yep, I agree. Yes,
So to address some of the comments from Marjorie, so yes, a floor plan has to be reviewed by the health department. And dens, libraries, and other spaces within the layout of a house could be considered bedrooms. And if the health department reviews it and those kind of features are in the layout and meet the definition of a bedroom, they'll have to change the layout so that it does not meet the definition, which is opening it up, eliminating any privacy is practically what is required. But you're right. I mean, in the future, I believe this is one of those phases for the town to sewer. So this deed restriction for 2 bedrooms is still in effect so long as there is an on-site septic system. Once there's connection to town sewer, I don't know what the town is going to allow for that house to do. But until there's a septic system on site and the deed restriction for 2, whatever layout they finish with this project has to be considered 2-bedroom, has to only count 2 bedrooms. That's,
These things just have a way of morphing. They morph. When we're not looking, they morph.
How do you police that too?
Well,
It's like, you know,
it's just so circular, but I am cognizant, I just want to say I'm cognizant of the recent discussion and disagreements that we have about purview. And I understand that it's not within our purview to look at the, well, but I would like to challenge that. I just, I think it's crazy for us not to.
yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, so.
okay. Sandy, any questions or comments? No? We all set?
Are there any plantings proposed with this, Raul?
no landscaping that was provided to us. I do know that within the flood zone, any lawn has to be in accordance to the Mashpee lawn requirements. So that condition will still come into play, but there's no landscaping that was proposed at this time. The entire site is mostly lawn areas plus the house. So anything that's not into the wooded areas, not outside the limit of work, will in all intents and purposes, remain as lawn areas.
Would there be space to replace the tree that's going to be removed? I don't know. It can be outside the limit of work along the property line by the picket fence, but would there be space to, behind the house?
So there's, so the tree we're talking about, between the 2 sheds, there's a tree, and the client wants to remove it. So the comment is, can we replace it somewhere, even if it's outside the limit of work, so that those limbs, the reason it's being removed is because the house is there and the limbs will be mostly affected. The tree is best to remove. But yeah, I can see a condition maybe to replace that. I would think, if I can take a look at the site pictures.
they're
There
also
is-
removing that large cherry tree in
Large
front.
cherry.
That's what I thought that was talking about in the narrative.
Yeah. it's
So there's
gonna
actually
come out
2
of that.
trees.
Can you go to the pictures, Dan? Yep. Thank you.
I thought he was talking, but he's
Yeah,
talking
that's-
about the smaller one in back. The big one's gonna
Talking
go
this, and
too.
this one here is going as well.
Yeah,
So yeah, it would be 2
There's
trees.
pretty cherry trees going?
yeah, that's where the septic.
That's where the
Yeah, that's
septic,
where the septic's gonna
that's
go.
the septic proposal.
Well, what the hell, Raul? Can't you find another place and keep the cherry tree? In what sane world do you choose a septic over a cherry tree?
That's not established, right?
There might be room just outside the limit of work, over behind that second shed.
It's so pretty.
Right.
If he's talking about this little
Again,
one.
not within the purview of the company.
Well,
Doesn't
yeah.
have to be a pretty tree or not, but it is.
No,
if it-
right, I know.
It adds to the value of the property, I would think.
Yeah, if the commission wants to condition a replacement tree for the removal of that tree by the sheds, there is room back there, from what I saw in the pictures, for a new tree.
Okay.
I would think either a tupelo or something similar.
Yeah.
Don't we have to have one for the cherry tree too?
2 cherry trees. Yeah.
Cherry trees, these ones are not
Native.
native, so I don't know that this is what,
I know,
what the
but still.
We would want a native
So
one.
I don't think the commission will want to replace with flowering cherry trees.
We'll take a native species.
Any other
Okay.
questions, comments? Okay. My first question is, do we have a waiver request under 172.7A3 for this project at all? I didn't see that in any of the paperwork.
Under 172.4,
Yeah, waiver from requirements under 172.7.
no waiver is requested. What regulation to waive?
Well, the reason I ask that is because I'm going to go into Regulation 25 next for subject to coastal flow.
So yeah, no waiver
So-
is requested. The basis we did for Regulation 25 is as a landlocked property.
Right.
No wetlands within 150 feet of the site, with less than 5,000 square feet of land within land subject to coastal storm flowage.
Right. So when I look at the GIS map and I look at the AE zone, elevation 13, the existing house just barely touches the edge of land subject to coastal flow. On your diagram, on the open white box where it says crawl space, pretty much where that word crawl is, that looks like the boundary of AE 13. Right? So the current house is like 99.999% outside of land subject to coastal flow. But the new house is going in, and it's going in substantially. And that's a resource area. So my question is, why is there not a 50-foot setback? Regulation 25, C7 specifically requires a minimum of a 50-foot setback for new construction. You gave us figures that this house is expanding in size. That's new construction, and you're moving into the resource area. The regulations don't allow it. That's why I asked if you're asking for a waiver.
So there's no ask for a waiver. The structure,
Right.
the deck, and the sheds, they're all in the flood zone. Those are existing structures, and they're being removed.
Right.
The proposed house, yes, it's in the flood zone,
Yeah, it's
to be
going in
constructed.
Substantially.
To be constructed to building code requirements. The 50-foot setback to the flood zone itself, I personally have not seen that applied to a project. The 50-foot setback or the 75-foot setback of today, we've applied it to coastal banks, BBWs, salt marshes, and those type of wetland resources, but not to the flood zone line itself.
But you're aware of the language that I'm referring to, C7 setbacks for Regulation 25.
Mr. Chairman, it doesn't mention, mentions contiguous to coastal beaches, coastal wetlands, coastal cliffs, and banks, rocky shores, and existing man-made shorelines.
Yes.
Coastal wetland is land subject.
Coastal wetland is land subject to coastal flow.
So,
That's how it's
right, so
defined.
that's what
Yeah.
you're saying, coastal wetlands.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
So I have a very difficult time approving a project that doesn't adhere to the regulations, especially when we don't have a waiver request. The regulations are very clear, and I know we've been kicking this around forever and a day. Regulation 25C7, setback, 50 feet. I've said it over and over and over again, and I'm saying it again tonight. I don't see the setback, it's not here, I can't support the project.
Why hasn't this been raised before, I wonder?
I've been raising it.
I know you have, but the regulation is available to all the other approval agencies along the way, and I wonder why that wasn't raised. It's a raise and replace, it's new construction.
Yep.
It's very clearly subject to 25, I think, but I'm waiting for Raul to tell us that something
Well,
versus a waiver that it's being grandfathered.
and it's not the only place we see this regulation. I know you were just talking about purview. In the
Right.
zoning regulations, they also have a 50-foot setback to wetlands.
Right.
Land subject to coastal flow is a wetlands. So, again, not our purview. I don't know what zoning will do, nor is it my business. But I'm looking at our regulation 25, and it clearly states that a minimum of a 50-foot setback. And I'm not seeing it, so I can't support it.
So,
That's just, that's just me.
so would we want to then condition it? Is it subject to a condition that you'd be supportive of that? I mean, that would mean that he'd have to come back, Raul would have to come back.
I don't think we should be in the business of engineering somebody's plan for them.
I
I think we
understand.
go with what's presented in the hearing.
Right,
and
I understand.
We match it up with what we're charged with, and
Yeah,
we go from
yeah.
there.
So,
What a conundrum, Raul.
Yes,
so the setback that is being talked about is the one on the critical erosion areas that we've been reviewing in other projects. And the way we apply that is in those areas that are critically erosion. And there are some areas in the town that have these characteristics where the bank is critically eroding. And the
Yes.
50-foot setback has been applied to the coastal bank, to the salt marsh or whatever wetland is there. But we have not applied it for an isolated or landlocked property like this one. So our stand is that that particular setback is not applicable for this application.
Why, because it's landlocked? Is that what you're
It is a
relying on?
landlocked, and there is no critical eroding area
Mm-hmm.
nearby within this site. If the town, if this commission feels that this should require a waiver for that particular regulation, I'll have to ask for a continuance to provide the waiver request, because there is nowhere on this property that a house can be rebuilt meeting a 50-foot setback to the flood zone.
exactly.
Well, not a house of this size.
Not a house of any.
Well, yeah. Leave it on the other side, right?
You,
And if it was built within the same footprint, would that
Right.
it?
you provide,
it-
That's what the waiver would be for, right?
If it's built within the same footprint, that is a grandfathered legally.
Right.
That's,
So
Right,
you
that
go-
would
that's
be,
what
It's
I
a
was
legal
waiting
footprint.
for.
that would be
But that's not the case. The
Right, that's
case
not what
here
they're
is the
proposing.
footprint
That's
is
what I was
actually
waiting for,
moving,
grandfather.
closer.
and it's going into the zone, and it's enlarging.
Yeah.
It's a whole different story.
Right.
So if you want to do that, you're more than welcome to.
yeah, I'm caught here, so I'll have to ask for a continuance to advise the applicant, and we'll have to request that waiver on a follow-up hearing.
Or at least ascertain, Raul, if I may be so pushy, is to say, at least ascertain, number one, the size and how it relates or doesn't relate to any grandfather clause that's pre-existing or any history. That's what I was waiting for, Mr. Chairman, was that I thought that's where he was going before the waiver, because you got two or three things that are all coming on top of each other. Something's got to give in order for this to be supportable. Is that fair to say? Something's got to give. Well, regulation 25, right off the bat, you need to do something. My
Yeah, I-
personal opinion, you need to do something.
I will have to ask for a continuance, because by the time we add a 50-foot buffer to a flood zone line, which we've never done before, quite honestly, the property has no room to meet that regulation. So inevitably, we have to come back with the waiver.
A waiver.
Rebuilding the house in the same footprint under a notice of intent, the regulation still applies because the regulation doesn't have a waiver for grandfather structures. There is no such thing in the local regulations. So it will still apply for the existing house. And it will apply for practically any house that the entire lot is in the flood zone. So I will have to ask for a continuance to advise the applicant on this and see how we can come back for the next hearing.
Realistically, how much time do you need? I just don't want to continue to the next hearing if you're not going to be ready at that
The-
time.
When is the next
I
hearing?
don't
The
know
next
if we have
available
room on
is
the
January 25th.
There's-
We're booked for the
there's-
first.
believe-
booked on the next one.
Yeah.
I believe there's plenty of time to get this back.
Okay.
But is this the sense of the rest of the commission? Yeah. It's unfortunate you have to be the trailblazer here. You'll set
Someone
the-
always has to be.
That's right, you'll set the precedent, and it's all going in the right direction.
So upon request for the continuance, I'd accept a motion if there is one.
I'll make a motion for a continuance to January 25th at 6:30.
6:42.
6:42.
Yes.
Yeah.
6:42. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Sandy. Further discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
This will all be for the better, Raoul. Including for the little snail. And our marine life.
Okay. I'm now going to call the 606 hearing for 48 Greenwood Road, Daniel Marsters and Joyce Marsters. Proposed placement of fill and retaining walls along property perimeter to bring property to just above elevation of adjacent roadway, which is Greenwood Road. This work is proposed as preparation for a planned raise and replace of an existing single-family residence and installation of a new septic system. Representative is Marsh Matters Environmental. Owner of record, Joyce A. Marsters, trustee, Greenwood Trust. This hearing is continued from 10:05 and 11:02. It is a notice of intent. I don't have a DEP file number. Do we have one on that?
Yeah, 433255.
43
3255.
3255. Thank you.
All right.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commission members. I'm Mike Ball from Marsh Matters Environmental. I'm here representing Dan Marsters and Joyce Marsters, who are the applicants and owners of this property. Dan is with us tonight. This was filed back on September 18. That was the original filing, and we have modified the plan significantly since then. We continued the hearing, but we haven't been before you, so this is the first time we're giving testimony at hearing. So the genesis of this project really began back in 2022, September, when the abutter to Mr. Marsh's property had a house redevelopment and septic system project approved back in the end of September of 2022. And as part of that project, a retaining wall was proposed along their shared property line. And so what the Marsters would like to do is bring up the elevation of their, the east side of their yard primarily to meet the elevation of the wall on Bierce Road, which is that property to the east. That's Betancourt is the owner right there. The first plan that was provided to you did show retaining walls on 3 sides of the property. That proposal has been removed from the plan after Dan had spoken with zoning, and they raised concerns about retaining walls. So what Engineering Works has done is shown a project that brings up the yard elevation to the elevation of the approved wall on the adjacent property. And the hope is that there'd be an elimination there'd be an elimination for the need of that wall on their shared property if they could just marry their landscape elevations together. So this is really a proposed fill project. It is completely in the flood zone. There are no other wetland resource areas nearby. The proposed future house, really, we're showing that footprint just to show that it's not definitive, but it's to show that they would be able to rebuild the house and provide septic system, a replaced septic system on the lot, and that would meet requirements. So this is a fill proposal, no retaining walls. We are showing trees, 2 trees to replace 2 that would be affected by the placement of the fill. This was a house that was built in 1950, and yeah, in the future, they would be looking to renovate that house with a new septic system. Let's see. The other changes from the original plan are that the originally proposed elevation of the foundation has been changed, so it's been lowered from, actually it's the first floor elevation was originally proposed at 14 feet, it's now down to 13 feet. This will raise the top of the foundation from existing by about 2.5 feet. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I'll go to commissioners first. We have questions or comments?
My only question was on your abutter. Are you the neighbor?
No, I'm the owner. I'm
You're
Dan
the owner.
Masters. Yes, yeah. My
So-
wife Joyce is in the audience here
Hi,
with me
Joyce.
too.
Are the
neighbor-
abutters here?
The abutters are here.
Are
yes.
you cool with this? You're cool with it? Okey dokey.
I got a couple questions for you guys.
Steve?
So, going back to the previous application, this is the 50-foot setback. Based on the previous application, I don't see that here, or a waiver. Then under 172.2, it mentions, no person shall commence to fill, dredge, or build upon. So you guys are adding fill in the flood zone. And then my other concern is, your 10-foot line is within 6 or 7 feet of the back property line where a 4-foot drop-off will be. So,
Point to that.
so
Steve,
if you
just-
look at your proposed plan on the, which would be on the, let me see, where's the compass? Well, it would be on the Bears Road on the property behind number 20. You see elevation 6 right behind the property line, then you have an elevation 10, new grade within, looks like 6 or 8 feet of the property line.
I'm
So
gonna
that's
step
gonna be-
over. I'm just going to step over so I'm very clear.
Okay, so it's elevation 6 here, this is elevation 10 line here.
If you look at the proposed or the approved line, that's actually 9.
That's 9. So,
So.
so you're adding, the abutters adding fill too?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, at 20 Bierce, their approval for a septic system, which they had to have a raised system, the approved elevation was to bring that lot up to elevation 9 around
Yeah,
their
if-
foundation.
If I may speak to that, so they're going to have a retaining wall right now, according to that approval. At the top of that retaining wall, I believe, is 8.8 feet 6 inches, and the grade right after that will be 9 feet. So what we're proposing, because our lot goes down, their lot goes down right now. So when they put the retaining wall in, our lot will be running right into that retaining wall, and it'll be approximately 2.5, 3 feet out of the ground.
Nine,
So
7.
we were
Okay, so
trying
it's
to
going
bring
on
up the
7 at
grade to match that
property
grade.
line. It's 10 there, so you're gonna have a 3-foot gully there?
Yeah, so what I'm showing Steve is this is just an image, and I know Dan doesn't have this. This is an image from the Betancourt plan at 20 Bierce, showing the approved change in elevations from 7 feet at the street, going up to 9 feet around the house foundation and the new septic system, which is to be built. So,
Yeah, so there's going to be a drop-off there. But,
right.
so going back to looking at the regulations, what's the compelling need to add fill? Why couldn't a new house be built there and have the grade just taper down on your
I
property?
think the reason is they'd really like to have a somewhat level yard, and rather than have a 30-inch wall along their shared property boundary, they'd like to be able to.
Yeah, because right now, as it exists, it flows down my lot. It has a slope into the low point and then disperses. Now there's going to be a wall there that's going to stop that flow. So now,
That plan didn't show a wall, that just shows grading. That's not a wall.
well, there will be a wall. There will be a wall when the house is built next to me on the approved plan right now. There will be a 2.5 to 3 foot wall along that property line. So now
But-
my lot will come down and go into the wall.
But that plan does not show a wall.
The approved
No,
20
no,
Bierce.
my plan does not.
No, that plan, that's for the abutters, right?
Yeah, there is one right
There's a,
there.
proposed retaining wall. Right along that line. So we're trying to eliminate the need for that wall. Right, so as part of the 20 Bierce project was this elevation 8.6 wall.
I'm so confused.
Okay, I
I know.
understand, yeah.
I'd be happy to show you this if you
Yeah,
want to look
let's
at it.
make it clear.
So,
So,
Steve, are you,
So if,
I'm confused and I'm looking at you.
no, just is that, the way Mike was explaining it, it's tying into the property behind, but the two plans, I didn't have that second plan, so the plans aren't matching up. If you put that plan and this plan together and you say, okay, this is the whole concept behind it, then it's clear. I understand what they're trying to do
So we're
now.
basically trying to maintain flow, if you will, because right now it flows naturally into one spot. We're trying to recreate that by raising up the grades so they match like they do now. I guess that's our point.
That they will now,
Well,
but they're not, they don't now.
They do now. They match now, but when the wall goes up, now I'll have a retaining wall. So I'm just trying to bring my property up to match the grade that will be lifted. It's not lifted now, but it will be lifted in the
So,
future.
but right now the topography goes in downward.
Like this.
And you all share this little
And-
culvert or something.
If you-
Well, no, it's just, right now, it's just our lots meets like that. So when they raise
And
up
they're going
there,
up.
they're going up. So now instead of going down and flowing, it's going to hit that wall, and then that's it. You
I
know?
think that image that Dan has his cursor on right now shows you a pretty good picture of the existing house. And again, that picture is with a southern aspect. So to the left of that house, in that lower left picture there, you'll see a wooden fence.
Thanks, yeah.
That would be eliminated with the approved project on the adjacent lot, and instead of that fence, there'd be a 30-inch block wall. So the majority of the fill that's proposed for Dan's property would be on the left side of that house as we're looking at it from the street. And it wouldn't make a completely level yard, but it would bring up the elevation of the yard, and it would eliminate the need for the wall on Betancourt's property, which has not yet been built.
And that's the idea, eliminate the retaining wall, and then eliminate the fact that that will become basically a collection area now, too, as well.
So, Mr. Chairman, just explain my concerns I have is 172.2 mentions about fill.
Yes.
The 50-foot buffer that was mentioned in the previous application for regulation 25. And then approving a future house, that gets us into the same issue that we had at Shoestring Bay
It's a building envelope.
property too, with,
Yeah.
you know, what is the footprint of the house? You know, this footprint of the house is larger than what's there, so you're saying, okay, you're adding, this goes back to the previous application also too. So all these issues that we're running into on these other projects.
There's a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, it applies to this issue. So if we approve this project with a future house, then any future commission's going to be in the same boat that we ran into at 61 Shoestring Bay, where we're trying to say, oh, there was a footprint, it's approved, but, there's issues with that, so.
If
So those
I-
are my concerns.
If I may speak to that, if you don't mind?
Sure, go ahead.
The purpose of showing the larger house on the plan was just for demonstration purposes only. We don't know what we're going to do with it. We don't know what the house is going to be. So, the engineer suggested just showing the fact that down the line, we're going to plan to do a new construction with a upgraded septic system. So I'm not here for approval of that, the house or the septic. I am here strictly for approval of fill.
Groundwork.
Yes, yeah. So I'm not asking the board to approve the size of that house or the septic system or anything like that.
But if it's on
It
the
was just-
plan, then it will be approved, right?
There's an envelope on the plan, I believe, building setback line and a building envelope.
Yes.
Yeah, but this is proposed future house, so if
Right.
this notice of intent gets approved by this commission, then that footprint is on the plan. So
Exactly.
if you want to do fill, it should be show the existing house and what you plan to do for fill, not showing a proposed future house. I'm just trying, we've run into issues with previous projects, so I'm just trying to eliminate future issues with my concerns there.
Let me bring it back to what we do have on the table. So you're proposing to remove the existing house and prepare the lot.
No, right now, we are not proposing that. We are proposing the ability, we're asking for the ability to bring in fill at a future date when we'll come back for the approval for the house and all of that. But what we wanted to do is bring in fill now, so when the abutters do their construction, so they don't have to put up a retaining wall. So we could come in here now and just fill in our yard and just get to a certain point that when we go to build, then we'll have the approval for the fill that's there. We may not bring in all the fill right at this moment.
Right.
Because the existing house is just slightly lower, so I don't want to bring it in too high against the foundation. So I wanted to bring up the yard to a certain point so they don't have to put up the retaining wall. And then when I come back later for the future project, I'll have the ability to get to that 10-foot elevation around the house. And that's all.
So can I just ask a question? Because I think this is,
Hold on, Marcy,
Yeah,
for a second.
it's a little unorthodox, I understand, but we're trying to
Right.
tie in with the other
So
project.
based on what you're saying, how could the commission approve bringing in a certain amount of fill? We don't even know how many cubic yards we're talking about, and we don't have any drainage calculations for the displacement of flood storage capability for the fill that's coming in before the house comes down. I don't see any information for drainage calculations or amounts of fill.
Okay.
It's a total unknown. I mean, it could be 5 loads, it could be 25 loads, I don't know. I mean, I've been on the site a lot.
Okay.
And that's quite a dip between the two properties. I know that there's a serious drainage problem in that whole neighborhood. If you go, and I've done this, you go all the way up to Jeep Place, the intersection of Jeep Place and Shore Drive, and you come down Shore Drive, and then you walk up Bierce's Road, and you come across Greenwood. You look at those intersections, you look at the extra drainage that's been put into the road, there's a serious water problem there. So when fill starts coming in, that water's got to go somewhere else. I mean, when you look at your property and I guess the neighbors aside of you, that is the lowest spot as you traverse away from it, as you go up to Jeep Place and as you go further into the Pompanesett area. It's a big bowl. And as these houses come up, and as when I open the hearing, it says placement of fill and retaining walls along a property perimeter to bring property to just above elevation of adjacent roadway, Greenway Road. Wouldn't that water go right out onto the road?
Well, I think that's somewhat of a misstatement. It's not going to bring the whole property up there. If you look at the elevation of the road, I believe it's like 10 and a half feet. And around the house, I'm looking for a 10-foot elevation. So I could still get it to drain onto the lot And then if the lot's brought up, I think it would help with, absorption of some of that too, as opposed to running down with velocity down that slope into a wall and then running along that wall to the street at a high rate of speed. I think if we brought that lot up to the other level of the property, it would allow for a natural, slower process that would allow for it to be absorbed into the soil too. So I think it would actually help with flow and help alleviate some of that problems than letting it stay as it is, running with velocity into the wall and onto the street.
I mean, ultimately, you're going to need a lot of natural vegetation on this lot to absorb stormwater, probably somewhere in the vicinity of 800, 900 square feet, just based on the size of the lot and what we would require for natural vegetation on a land subject to coastal flow lot. So I've got a lot of reservations. I don't know how much fill. I don't see any drainage calculations. I don't know what the future plan is for the house. I don't know what the future plan is for natural vegetation, rain gardens, swales. I mean, it's your house. You're down there. That is a catastrophically serious flooding neighborhood. Do you have that picture, Dan?
Yes.
I know I've heard from different abutters and neighbors.
Right there.
They're
Yeah.
sending me pictures. I'm looking at these pictures of flooding situations. This occurred this past summer.
Right.
I mean, there's kids in there in boats. And that's right at the intersection of Greenwood Road and Shore Drive. There's your GIS map. The blue circle indicates exactly where that photograph is taken. I see stuff like this, and yeah, it's a bad storm, but it seems like these days it's all we get. I turn on the TV and all I hear about is atmospheric rivers. And it comes. I'm from Leominster. I saw what happened to my former hometown this summer. Wiped out completely. So I've got a lot of concerns about this project. And as we just had in the previous hearing, we've been doing a lot of work on Regulation 25. I've been pulling that regulation apart for almost a year. And we've rewritten almost all of it. It's almost ready to come back to the commission for a different Regulation 25. But the existing one, it's very ambiguous. You look at it and it's a little of this and a little of that, but I've picked it apart and I have it on my screen right now, and the setback requirements also, not for the building of the home, address filling. And there's no waiver. I didn't see a waiver request to bring this fill in. So, I would say the same thing I said at the last hearing. I can't approve this.
I think if I can just address the regulation, and I've been to enough hearings and I've heard, I respect the opinion absolutely and I understand it. You used the word kind of ambiguous, some of the language in the,
Yep.
but in the last hearing you said that also that it was very clear in the regulation. So I see that's a problem with the regulations, and I know you guys are working on updating the regulation, because I think the Regulation 25 needs a lot of work, because as consultants and engineers, like, for instance, with the Betancourt project, we had a project that was approved with fill, retaining wall in the flood zone, didn't need a waiver back then, it was approved. I understand this is a slightly different commission makeup, but I think that ambiguity is part of the problem with projects in the flood zone in Mashpee, is because as applicants, consultants, engineers, we're not quite sure, maybe we're sure now, the response and comments we're going to get from you, but in the past, a 50-foot buffer to a project that is entirely in the flood zone, which most of this neighborhood is not possible unless you're saying that no one can do anything on a house in the flood zone, because if you were to expand even a tiny bit, you would not be making that 50-foot buffer regulation or standard. So I think that's a problem with Regulation 25. And yes, this proposal didn't come with a waiver, but based on my experience, and I've done projects in the flood zone in Mashpee before, we've not previously had to request one. I'm expecting that in the future, when your regulations are revised and approved, that we probably will always have to ask for a waiver. for any project in the flood zone. But currently, those regulations aren't in place, and so we're dealing with that ambiguity and trying to meet homeowners' interests to protect their property, and I can see the commission's concerns with protecting adjacent properties and neighborhoods, so that's just my,
Can I add?
Regulation 25 goes back to 2005.
Yeah.
So it's long overdue. And
Yeah.
to see something like this back in 2005, you just didn't. But we're seeing this now all the time. So, yeah, the commission has changed, the regulations are changing. We've got some serious problems here in Mashpee. Flooding problems, nitrogen problems, water quality problems, and things have to change, and they are changing. And I'm looking at this older regulation, and I've picked it apart, almost every single word of it. And there are a lot of things that have been overlooked that maybe shouldn't have been, but easy to do when it's so jumbled as it is. So even with what you're asking, to bring in that fill, I see that you would have to ask for a waiver based on the current regulation 25, because it says right in it, filling, and you're bringing in fill. So I have a hard time supporting it. And based on the other things that I had mentioned, how much fill at this stage of the game, if you want to call it that, this stage of the project, where are the drainage calculations? When I see drains proposed for around a future house, they're not going to work. The drains down there don't. I mean, when I looked in the drain, this was a month ago, in the middle of the street, the water was almost up to the steel grate, and it hadn't rained for a week. It's an extremely high water table there. So surface drains that are going to go down in, they're not going to do much good. So I have a lot of problems with this proposal, the way it sits right now. Marjorie, I know you had.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention even more to the point, and I agree with everything that you've said. It's it's a difficult dichotomy here to balance and to move forward. But just based on this particular request, all by itself, as a commission, it's my opinion, we don't have the authority to make a decision based upon what might happen next door. So what we have to consider is the request for the fill, what they want to do with it, the fact that the neighbors may or may not put in a retaining wall is really way beyond the purview of any committee or commission to say, well, if they do that, that'll be good, it'll match. What we have to, I think, decide is whether they can go ahead and put fill in that particular spot. And I don't think we can make an assumption of what might or might not be there in the future. The table might be there, the neighbors may decide to do something completely else. But I'm very familiar with the neighborhood, and it's a beautiful neighborhood. But it has the propensity, as you've said, Mr. Chairman, to have the audacious increase in flooding down there in the neighborhoods is something we can't ignore. And so we have to take, it's my belief, we have to take the request, take a look at it and say, all by itself, here's what we have to approve or not, or condition or not. And I think it's good to know what the neighbors want to do, but the neighbors might want to, put in a Ferris wheel. I don't think that's our job as a commission to say if they put in what they say they're going to put in, and if there's a retaining wall. Everything that goes to that topography goes to the rest of the street and goes, it's got, like you said, it's got to go somewhere. And a retaining wall might help and it might not, but I don't think we can even assume it. I think it's beyond our assumption, our assumptive ability.
So if we're
May I
going-
ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
So if we were to come back after they did the retaining wall, would that be taken as a consideration that, okay, they put up a retaining wall and it changed everything, so now we
In
have
my
to deal with
opinion-
the problem that was created by that? Would the commission take that into consideration?
It would relieve her concern about a wall that isn't presently there.
Okay.
I think. My concern is if this proposal is going forward, that I would like to see the specific amount of cubic yardage fill that you're requesting
need
us
that.
to approve, to bring
Yep.
in now. And I would like to see the drainage calculations that's going to relieve my concerns that it's not going to exacerbate the problem that you saw on the screen.
Fair enough.
So those are my concerns. Alex, you have something?
Yeah, so I just want to acknowledge that it's a little ridiculous that a year ago, fill was approved on the neighboring property to cause a retaining wall of that size being put right at your property line. And I don't know what was going on in our heads at that time. I can't truly recall what happened with 20 Pierce Road. I want to recognize that is putting us in a conundrum, that we didn't
Absolutely.
have the foresight to
Yeah.
think about what that was doing
What
to a
will it
neighbor.
be, and what will the,
And,
yeah,
and
future
we need to do better if that's the case, because it's put this applicant in an extremely awkward position.
Yeah.
Totally.
And I just want to say that I am in support of that project next to me, though, too. I don't mean to be pulling that in and causing any issues with that project whatsoever.
Sure.
Okay, I'm not here saying that's an issue.
Sure.
I'm just trying to, you know.
If this
deal with the
all
situation.
goes through, everybody on the street needs to have a block party.
So,
But my concerns with this are the way this was applied for. Mike, you shouldn't need to come up with another additional plan to show it to us. Like, just include it so we can see it beforehand. It makes our life a lot easier. But a proposed future house that there's no intention of doing right at this time with just like a blanket envelope, we can't do that. Even having it on the plan is not, it doesn't work. And then you'd be doing potentially some of the fill right now, but not all of it, because your first floor elevation, or top of foundation is 9.6 feet. At some point, you want to bring it up to 10 feet. So you'd be doing some now, some later. It doesn't, I don't know.
yeah, it's not cohesive.
It doesn't work for,
I
I
understand.
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 It's very unorthodox the way we're coming in. And the reason for that is we were just trying to work with the neighbor next door, try to get that project, so when they do theirs, we could do our aspect of it, to avoid having to have them do the wall and then us come in later, in filling up to that, and then that's just a waste of time and money. But, I understand your concerns, and I know it needs to be addressed. If we came back with a plan that didn't show a future house or anything else and just addressed the situation as it was with Phil, drainage calculations and other ways we can, help try to improve the situation, would the board look more favorably upon that, I guess, is my question.
And I'll just add, Alex, that in hindsight and based on your comment, it would have made sense for me to include
Yeah.
the approved plan, so you
Yeah.
had some context, because right now, we're just talking about a wall, you don't know why the wall was approved, and.
Right.
And I have a copy of it here, but it wasn't submitted, and you don't have the benefit of reviewing it in advance. But I think the wall was primarily designed because there was a new septic system going in on the lot, which had to have an elevated soil surface to
Right.
gain separation, right? And so it's just like any raised system you see around, they have that ugly wall. This one happens to be on the property line next to the applicant's yard.
And depending on what happens in this situation, we might run into the same situation ourselves when we get to that point too as well. So there are some unknowns, so we were just trying to work and solve the issues best we could.
I think you'd be looking at potentially bringing in fill to taper a slope, to not have the retaining wall go in, and a lot of vegetation to help deal with runoff and to
I
help.
agree on the
do that.
vegetation.
That's
Yeah.
what you would be looking
You
at.
gotta have
Okay.
something there to hold it.
Right.
Yep.
Did you guys look at an option of having a rain garden down by that wall?
No, we haven't yet, no.
So why don't you install a rain garden vegetation and don't even bring in fill?
Right.
Then you don't have to worry about meeting
Well,
chapter 172-2 in regulation 25. If you worry about that wall being there in rainwater and storm flowage, going to
Well,
rain
I
garden
think the
would
wall-
help out.
I think to Mike's point, he's saying the wall had to be there because of the elevation of the septic, and they needed that soil around it. I believe that's the situation.
Yeah,
So,
with Board of Health, when they have to have that raised, they do have to have a
Yeah,
retaining wall.
so-
We encountered it on Bluff Ave earlier this year
Right, but
as
if
well.
you're saying instead of bringing fill into the yard and
well, they
up
have to
against
have,
the.
they have to have. the
No,
fill.
no, I'm not
Yeah.
talking, I'm talking about your proposal, not theirs. That's already over and done with. But you're saying that you have a wall your neighbor's building and your grade is going down lower than the wall, why don't you make that a rain garden with vegetation then instead of bringing fill up?
Because you don't want to look at a wall, is that it?
Excuse me?
Is it that you don't want to look at a wall?
No. It's more for the, actually, the grade of the yard, you know, to get it up, to get a little more levelness to it as well. You know, right now, it is a pretty good slope, so if we come in and build a new house, we're just looking for a little area to get like some, you know, something around the house. So a little level yard or for area for a patio or
Yeah,
something
but
like that.
then even if you go back in and build a new house, you're digging up all that,
Yeah.
the fill and redistributing everything you put in, if you put in fill. So why don't you just leave the grade natural, put in a rain garden, and, you know, then you come back for the future house.
Worth
then-
considering.
Yeah, and it just makes things so much simpler.
That it would.
It would be, I'll just add that looking at the pictures here, if that, let's say that the Marshes were to come back in a year and be ready to propose a house, and it's got to be flood zone compliant, that foundation goes up 30 inches. It's a lot of exposed foundation. So that's another reason why often people want to see some fill around.
Yeah, the aesthetics has a big part to do with it, the aesthetics of the wall and of the raised foundation, all of that too as well. So we're looking to soften that as well. So we're trying to find a. you know,
Plantings
happy-
can soften it, or you can drop the siding down lower over the concrete wall to soften that so you don't see all concrete. So between the plantings and, you know, extending the siding down, those are two solutions there to hide a exposed
But I
concrete
think
wall.
the issue with that would be for us to create a rain garden would take some space to do. And then we'd be losing a significant usable portion of the property too as well, because of the effect of the wall there too. So part of that is I was trying to
know.
avoid losing that because I'm on a corner lot, the house has to be shoved to that back corner. So I don't have because I got 25 setback back on two sides of the lot. So therefore, it pushes me back towards that wall. So if I was to build a house that had to go near that setback, do a rain garden, I'm basically got a rain garden next to my house and in a wall. And I think that's a little on the, unsightly side. So I was trying to find a better solution for that. And I think that if we were to do something and lift up the grade, we could add some more drainage there. I could still do some natural vegetation, and I could still accomplish that fact by being able to bring up the grade as well and still create some type of absorption area or some type of plantings that would help with that, or install some other drainage.
Yeah.
Or a combination of
So
things.
when you do start looking at that, it's gonna require at least 800 square feet of plantings. So, just so that's understood.
But avoiding fill gets you around 172.2 and regulation
Right.
25.7C, and both are, say no fill, so.
Well, one being the one that would cause a need for a waiver, is that what you're saying? Is that the 25 one?
25.
And then the 172, I'm sorry, I don't know what exactly that said. I don't have that in front of me.
That's the bylaw that does not allow filling within the floodplain.
Is that the one that was just approved at the last town
No,
meeting?
this is the original
this-
bylaw.
Okay.
And then you take that bylaw and you carry it into Regulation 25. Now, your neighbor was allowed to bring the fill in because it was a septic issue. That's exempt
Okay.
from fill requirements because you have to get that separation to allow the house to be livable. But typically, any other kinds of fill being brought in, such as what you're mentioning, is not allowed in Regulation 25. So that provision in Chapter 172.2 is held up by the regulation in Regulation 25. And that's the existing one now. That's why I asked, is there a waiver of requirements? Because in order for us to approve the fill to go in there, based on Regulation 25 today, the way it is, you'd need a waiver.
Okay.
So
But if-
I
if
don't
we-
know where you want to proceed from now. Do you want to ask for a continuance and continue thinking about how much fill you want to bring in and do the drainage calculations? Or do you want to wait? I don't know. It's your call.
I think it'd be wise to have a continuance just because of the certain numbers you were looking for. We'd need some time to consider options in terms of drainage improvements, natural vegetation, adding natural vegetation to hopefully get this plan into, get to a point where it could be compliant with the bylaw and the regulations.
And try not to put the cart before the horse on this and try to ask for something predicated on something that's not there yet. Whether it's the next door neighbor or whether it's your future plans or whatever, if it's not there, you can't really predicate a request because you don't know what it's going to need in terms of waivers or are you grandfathered or not. That's my best advice. Do it for what you're doing now and what exists now.
Yeah, I just think it's worth noting that I think Dan was trying to help out his
Yeah.
Oh,
property
sure.
owner, because if he could save his property owner from putting in a $20,000
It's good
retaining wall,
information,
that, you know,
but you
Yeah,
can't,
'cause
you can't base a
it'll-
decision on it.
No, it'd just be tough that if he puts up a wall and we end up getting permission, that we have to fill in that
Then you're
wall.
on that list. You know?
Yeah, so, okay.
So
Well,
we'll
All
go
right,
with the
so is
continuance?
that
I would go with the continuance,
yeah,
yeah.
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 And like, in a month, in 2 months, like, how much time do you want?
Let's start with a month.
It's good.
Or do you
It'll
wanna
be a
go-
little
Well, you know
over.
what, I'd like, if it's okay, I mean, to probably maybe a little bit longer, because I might give me more time to develop
Yeah.
a plan.
Yeah.
And develop a true idea of the total scope of the whole project as well,
Right?
you know? That way I can come in
You'll
here
have less guesswork.
instead of piecemealing.
Yeah,
Yep.
I agree.
So you can look at January 25th, February 15th, basically whichever month. In February, we only have one meeting the
I
whole
would,
month.
I would probably say, if you don't mind, can I
Sure,
just
please.
consult for a second?
What's the one after February 15th?
Yeah,
March 10th?
I think that's right.
I got
Or
it.
like March 10th.
I would say,
Up to you.
I would
March
say,
7th, March 7th.
let's do the February 15th one, you know?
15?
Should give us some good time to develop something.
At 6:30? Is
Yeah,
that
it's
right?
6:30.
6:30?
And then what we would want to see is drainage, vegetation,
Amount of fill.
amount of fill, not a hypothetical house.
No, yeah, that's,
No hypothetical
No hypotheticals.
or wall.
Right.
Right.
So, Mr. Chairman, if they come back and present fill, is that something that this commission's going to approve, or is
Well,
it?
I would think they would also come back with the waiver.
Right.
So we could look at it. And then it's up to the discretion of the commission to waive that requirement.
So I think, I might be speaking out of turn here. I think in order for you to get fill approved, you would need to tie it to putting in a new septic system. Because then that would make sense.
Yep.
But just doing it, and then you're gonna blow it up to install a septic system 2 years later to build a house, I don't know.
yeah, I mean,
You'll
chances are I'm
have
going to
time
have
to
to do
figure that
that.
out.
Chances are I'm going to have to do that anyways,
You're
but I
gonna
just
have to figure-
wasn't sure, so
Yeah.
that's why I wasn't presented. So I was just asking for the fill, so I was just trying to, like I said, help my neighbor and
Right.
hopefully solve that issue. But now I understand the situation and what we're dealing with, and
Yeah.
I think, yeah, that's probably what's
Yeah.
going to happen, because we're going to have to lift it up because you said, like, the water table in
Right.
the area, all
Yeah.
of that too as well, so.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
Excellent.
not in
So-
support of fill, if that gives you any guidance.
Just fill for the sake
No
of fill.
kidding, really,
I know.
Steve? Get you onto that.
No, I think there's
Yeah.
alternative
Could-
methods or,
I think
you
we've
know,
talked
ways
about a
to
couple.
go to figure
You'll
this
think
out.
about it. and,
Yeah. And just out of
Just like-
curiosity, if we needed a waiver, do we get the waiver from the commission, or is that from somebody else?
That's within our regulations. You would just add it to your paperwork for submission.
Okay, so that would be part of the submission, and
Yeah.
so
Yes.
we'd address it
We,
here.
we can send out the specifics. I can send out the
Yeah.
specifics as well.
Okay.
for it, if you
There's
want.
criteria that you have to meet, and then it's up to the discretion of the commission.
Okay. Would that be determined prior to or at the
That would
next
be
presentation?
at the hearing.
At the
Okay,
hearing.
excellent,
Yeah.
thank you. Yep. All right.
Okay, so we have a request for continuance to 2:15 at 6:30 PM. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Thank you, Steve.
A second.
Thank you, Alex. Any further discussion amongst commissioners? Nothing else? We're good? Okay, I'll call for a vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes, sir.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. We'll see you in February.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You got some
Have a-
good work
have a
done
good
here
holiday.
tonight. Yeah, I think so. Happy holidays.
Sorry,
We'll chat together with Pete.
we're on a roll.
Yeah, that's just,
Okay.
but based on substance,
Thanks.
taking it seriously.
What's the building?
What?
The building.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sitting here getting bored.
I'm with Steve.
Yeah, me too.
So.
Okay. Now going to call the 609 hearing for 53 Bluff Avenue. Lorraine G. McBride, proposed additions to a single-family dwelling. Representative is Marsh Matters Environmental. This is a notice of intent. And do we have a DEP number on this, Dan?
Yes, 433260.
3260, 433260. Okay. Good evening, sir.
It's me again. For your record, Mike Ball from Marsh Matters Environmental, representing Lorraine McBride, current owner of 53 Bluff Avenue. This also is a property that's completely in the flood zone. I would say a little less challenging than the previous project to present. This is a house where they're looking to just, as you can see from the plan, build out additions to a very small house. And as you can see from the proposed condition side, they're looking to basically convert that back deck into living space, and then on the northwest corner of the house, just have that corner bump out to add some living space over there. This is not an increase in a bedroom or anything like that. They're just looking to create some additional living space inside. So very small lot. This is 0.19 acres. As you know, a lot of these lots are very small. Six-room house. It is currently a three-bedroom house, and as I mentioned, they're not looking to increase. There's no reason to, or no need for an upgraded or replaced septic system. Engineering works did the plan. No natural vegetation is being removed from the property. It looks like, according to engineering works, about 350 square feet is the proposed addition of structure, and I believe that's a net when you remove the deck footprint, so it's 350 square feet of increased structure. As I mentioned, I'm completely within land subject to coastal storm flowage. No proposal for fill, no grade changes on the property, just addition of structure. Happy to answer any questions.
Just before questions, if I may. So this was set to be heard before the zoning because they thought there was no driveway in place. There is a driveway. Mike sent all the documents that there is. So tonight, there will have to be revisions in the plan just to reflect the driveway is on the property.
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest things. So after tonight, they will present that to zoning and they won't have to be heard. Or not that they won't have to, zoning will look at it, reevaluate it then. So.
Where is the driveway?
So the driveway is actually, if you look on the map, it's right here. At some point, regulations were made in 2005. At some point between 2007 and 2014, it disappeared and grass was planted in its place.
Do they have to put a driveway back?
That you cannot have a house in Mashpee, especially in this area, without a driveway.
Can you do that again, Dan, with the cursor? Where was the driveway?
It's right
Up there
here.
where that wall is?
Yep.
So
That's what we
the
thought.
wall was actually the edge of the previous driveway. And Dan and I
wall is the
looked at,
edge of it.
yeah, so Dan and I looked at historical aerials, and in 2014, from Google Earth, you could see a car parked
Yeah,
on a
you can see it.
driveway. And I think they just stopped using it and have been parking on the street ever
Yeah, just-
since.
Grass just grew in, it seems.
But do our regulations require the town's regulations?
Ours do not.
Not ours, but the town in general, does it require it to be paved? Like, can it?
No, so
So it
our-
can be just a grass parking space, can it not?
But they didn't even have it on record that they had a driveway. all it shows on record here is this little 1 foot, 2 foot wide little apron as their driveway, and that's, you can't have that in Mashpee. You have to have a set driveway with your house. So that was the original reason why zoning said they need to go before zoning. And then when we found all this out, zoning said, once we get the documents in, we'll reevaluate it.
Yeah.
So,
And they'd just be looking to put in a driveway of crushed stone. They're not looking to put in a paved, but they would like a crushed stone parking.
yeah,
parking
they'll
spot.
remove the grass, the tops, not the topsoil, but just the grass, and then cobbles or, not cobbles, gravel or crushed shells or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Dan, do you have photographs of the house?
Yes.
So this doesn't affect the foundation at all, you said?
That's it, so.
You can almost see the driveway. If you look at that central picture there,
It's that.
yeah,
Right,
right
right.
there, that's kind of where it was. And it's just now been overgrown.
But, I mean, somebody could still park there, correct?
Yeah.
It has to be defined for zoning.
But on zoning, it has to be, on the plan, has to show it.
Right.
Okay. Are there any rules that it, like, can't be that close? Is it gonna be denied? Like, it can be
Nope.
right at the property line? It
can be
doesn't
right on
matter?
the property line, that's no
Okay.
problem, as long as they have one.
Okay.
And that is why they don't have a date for zoning at this moment. That's why I wanted to be clear.
Okay. So. How much of the lot? I think in order for this to be approved, it's going to need at least 10% of the lot to be native vegetation. So we need to figure out where that's going. And then we can move forward. Are there any other concerns that jump out at people?
Well, in the realm of consistency,
Right.
I would assume there'd also be a waiver request here, because it's, how many feet, Mike, 300 and what?
Yeah, I think the calculation was,
318 square feet additions?
I have a net increase in structure and hardscape of approximately 350 square feet.
What is the size of the patio, Mike? Just off.
So that's a,
Oh, it says 9.5 by 17.5.
9.5 by 17 and a half.
180 square feet.
It's about 107 square feet.
and as you can see, it is all existing, over existing lawn.
What is the size of the existing, that whole, I was standing on it today, that whole existing deck and right there between the bulkhead and the house itself? What is the size of that square?
I don't have a scale with me.
Because you're replacing that, right? With,
That is, right.
Probably 10 by 12, it looks like.
It looks about 10 by
Yeah.
12, yeah.
I guess.
so that's already existing, so it's really not 300 and something extra square feet, right?
Right, it would be less than that.
Although the patio's not there.
I think when you put the patio and that front entry porch and that back corner addition, I believe that's where you get to 350,
Right.
plus minus.
So technically, it's an increase in the footprint, and it just runs along the theme we've had going on here all night. It's- You're inland subject to coastal flow, you're increasing the size of the house.
So,
Regulation 25 doesn't allow that unless you have a setback, and here it's impossible, like it is on a lot of lots. So the waiver request should be in place, and it should be up to the commission to decide, is there a compelling need? And, you know what the criterias are, just so the paperwork is clean. And, you know, I know once I saw this, it had to be 3 months ago. I've been the one, every time one comes up, nope, where's the setback, where's the setback? And there's been arguments.
Oh, I've heard them.
Yeah, you've been there.
I've been to them, yeah.
And
Yeah, breaking of
Ag-
glass.
Again,
you know,
it's
very
the
unattractive.
setback, that wording. I struggle with the requirement of a setback on a property that's entirely within the flood zone, which you're correct, is a wetland resource area. It's not a wetland, it's a wetland resource area. It's a type of a jurisdictional wetland resource area. And so I struggle with, how does someone attain the required setback when they're completely in the flood zone, other than just not doing anything at all? a project like this, very small house, very reasonable proposal. We see people converting decks to living space, bumping out corners of houses. They're not increasing a bedroom, they're not increasing the size of the septic system. In my opinion, even though technically under your bylaw this would require a waiver based on the wording, I don't think this particular project raises to the level of that requirement, but that's your administrative process.
It's just there.
I just look at it as regulatory language, and you need to keep it the way it's set up. It's got
It's
to be
not
clean.
that hard to do.
It's not that hard to
No.
do. I think what then we would do is, because we've got to submit a revised plan showing the driveway.
Right.
With that revised plan, I would always submit a cover letter. In that cover letter, we would request a waiver and point to that regulatory language.
Yep.
And also within that, so you've been hearing tonight, the landlocked lot, 10% native vegetation. And the reason for that is this lot is landlocked. So it has, right now, you might be able to consider some of the trees native vegetation, but the flower beds itself are all colored mulch, so that doesn't qualify for native vegetation.
Okay. So you're saying retroactively, they would have to plant to 10%?
They would have to have 10% in the property.
10%.
So that would be
10% of the property.
that would be 600 and something square
That's
feet.
not hard either.
Okay. And if we couldn't attain that? if
You
we
could add
couldn't-
that to the waiver.
We could add that to the
Yes,
waiver.
absolutely.
So,
I have a question. This sheet, looks like there's a whole proposal for a new house. It
Yeah,
says,
that was my question too, Sandy.
I mean, certainly the picture is not, you mentioned a front entryway, and then there's like this dormer, but this is a whole proposed first floor, proposed foundation.
I believe they're doing changes on the interior that are a result of the footprint.
I disagree with you.
You think they're,
Oh, yeah,
Well, I
'cause this
mean,
is
it's
totally, I agree with Sandy, this is
foundation.
this is a whole new roof.
A new
The dormers, along with the additions, and the addition has a full basement. Full basements aren't allowed in flood zones.
yeah, I don't think the basement is.
Doesn't show the new foundation in the back corner. And then, just looking at what's being proposed for this design, it's well past 50% of the market value of that house. Just based on my construction knowledge, what I deal with
Yeah.
daily.
Yeah.
Because once you go past 50%, you have to bring the whole house up to flood zone regulations, which is no basement, flood vents, and so forth. So, this is a whole new roof structure. It looks like there's a dormer, it looks at vaulted ceilings, and then, the whole first floor is totally clean because you have new walls, where the old walls are. This plan doesn't show it, but where you're saying the two proposed additions are, this, looks like this whole house is coming down to the first floor deck and being rebuilt, according to this plan.
So you're thinking that this goes beyond the 50%?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we
Yeah.
got to confirm that.
But it's sort of misleading, because if you just read the beginning, they're just adding these little bump outs and they're
I
changing the
know.
front, but in fact,
know, I
now
mean,
there's a whole.
In applications, we don't really go into detail about what's happening on an interior. The
Well, the whole-
commissions are concerned
Different
about
house.
structure increase, and that's the
Yep.
focus of the application. So certainly, I
mean, this
don't
isn't-
like, that word misleading, I
doesn't-
don't really like to hear in here,
Well,
because
I'm
there's
just
no way
saying-
I was trying to mislead.
No, but if I hadn't really, looked through the paperwork and just read the front thing, I think, they're just making this little change on these corners and they're changing the
Yeah.
front.
This jog
But
and
now,
that jog's getting
when we were
filled
there
in.
today, I'm saying, well, this dormer thing at the top isn't here. So this is a whole, and
Is it
it's a
totally
whole
rebuilt?
new
That I
layout.
don't know.
What
So
about the,
I'm just worried it's sort of like the last one, it's sort of.
This looks like a
making
total
like an
rebuild.
envelope.
It does
And
look
we
like a
approve
total
it, and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden there's a house there.
you know, on the porch, Mike, the side porch, to me, I thought it was just an area that was being squared off from the house. The gas feed to the house is right there. So is that all coming out as well? So there have to be some excavation to move
Can you
that
point,
gas
can you
feed.
point to that? I'm sorry.
Up at the top where it says proposed addition, right there. In fact, right where his cursor is, the gas feed is right on that wall, right there. It's a double feed. One, there's two lines that come
No,
off the
'cause they're
meter.
gonna
One
do
goes
a
into the house.
Oh, I
and
see the
other one-
gas line. I see the gas line.
And when I saw that, I thought, well, is this a porch, or is it gonna stay there? It's just,
That's where they have their
No, 'cause
AC condensers, I believe.
whole new house.
It is a whole
Yeah.
house. I mean, it's gotta be.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So Steve,
Yeah, right here.
what you were saying before about the foundation.
Yeah, right
was
there.
the- Why I had asked the question before, does the foundation change?
Well,
If
Yeah.
we're looking at this through a different prism now as a new build, then they really can't put in a foundation, right?
Correct, yeah, not a full basement, yeah, because
Flood compliant.
I'm just worried about, okay, this commission approves this project, but when they actually go during construction, well, this is taking down the first floor deck, it's basically a whole new house. And it goes past the 50% rule.
That's right.
And then the building commissioner stops it and saying, oh, you need to go back and bring out the flood zone
Gotcha.
regulation, and changes what we approve
Yeah.
in detail. I'm just trying to head off a future issue,
Yep.
which
Yes.
could or could not happen,
Right,
so.
it's like
Just
That's my
little
only-
context.
blanketing.
Your answer to the question doesn't change the foundation. It really does.
Yeah,
And so on things like this, I did, not just this, but I know some other projects in the past, so I've checked with the town planner. He just wanted to confirm that no matter what is approved here, holds no bearing in the ZBA or other boards. So just because it was approved here does not mean it's gonna go before the ZBA
Well, no.
or whatnot.
Why
No,
would
but
we wanna be
why-
goldfish?
No, I understand. I just want to make that clear as well. You know, especially for other applications such as 48 Greenwood, no matter what approval you give, if it has to go before the ZBA or some other board, then that doesn't guarantee them protections from whatever their regulations may be for the flood zone or others.
Sure.
right.
So I wanna
But
make
if
that
we're
clear.
approving a flood zone project,
That's right.
it has to be flood zone compliant, like
Yeah.
flood vents, like was the first application today, they showed, oh yeah, it has flood vents. Well, this plan doesn't have flood vents.
No, this doesn't. This,
You know,
this
if-
for our purposes looks just like two small additions.
Yep.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
That's what we did.
Absolutely.
just the
I agree.
paperwork isn't matching up, that's.
No, I agree.
Okay, so
Yeah,
if we can just review, so I think the most important question is the 50% improvement. So that needs to be fleshed out. Is that, Steve, that's the first concern? Because that
Yeah,
then
because-
drives the foundation, if there's a need for a flood compliant foundation.
Yeah, and then if you're saying you need a flood compliant foundation, there's more excavation
Yeah.
Well,
and
and that's-
impacts in flood vents and things like that. Right, yeah, that impact, that's what I'm concerned about.
Yes.
It's like the footprint, and like you said, Paul said, the waiver and the vegetation, that's all part of it. But it's saying, okay, let's get 100% figure out what actually is gonna be done on that site. So,
I mean, maybe they're only going to do those little additions now and this down the road, but we should know that, right? I mean,
yeah,
That should all be considered.
just like, Paul mentioned that all the paperwork needs to be matched
Right.
up, so.
Yeah,
so.
trying to avoid another problem. you know. Anything else? What about the,
Anything else?
what about the, I'm curious about the roadway itself, the way it scallops out. The pavement looks to me as though it was all done at the same time. Would that scalloped out asphalt area, would that be milled out, and would that turn into crushed stone of some kind on the property, or how does that?
You're talking about the
the-
wide,
The existing, like, right there at the back of that truck?
yeah,
That right in there. That's where I parked when I inspected the property, and it's pretty wide. You
Yeah.
can see the road line that it goes out from. So what happens to that? Does that just stay that way?
I would assume so. These plans don't show any change to that
Right.
existing condition.
But that's certainly on the owner's property, not the town, or, is this a private road, the association? No. Bluff Ave?
I believe so.
That's an accepted road by the town, right?
I can't remember.
I don't know. I was just curious. I think it was the next house down, it was all crushed stone on both sides when you get over to, was it Shore Drive? And there was some extra drains or something that were there. I'm sure there's a water issue. I could see a lot of water issues around this piece of property when I was inspecting it.
This is a little different than the previous project, just because it isn't in that kind of neighborhood basin. It's not
Right.
that situation.
Right. There's a basin behind that property line that comes off of 70 Alma, which is right behind it.
Dan, can you bring up the aerial photo from the notice of intent? I want to see. There
aerial
would have been figure 2 in the NOI.
Which one do you want?
If you scroll up a little bit more and zoom in on that, or just aerial right there. So, Mr. Chairman, you were asking about which property?
The piece of property that's down here at the bottom right-hand corner, in fact, you can see some of the crushed stone that's out in the roadway. See where that pole is, utility pole?
Yeah.
Right there. That's all crushed stone from that little driveway
Oh,
down.
I see what you mean.
And
Yep.
it's all crushed stone all the way down to the intersection and crushed stone along the other side. So I was wondering, in the end, is that dished-out area of pavement, is that going to be taken out and turned into crushed stone of some kind, or is that just going to be left as is?
Under current proposal, it'd be left as is,
Just
but
left the way it
certainly,
is.
that could be something that could be a consideration.
Yeah.
Are you saying in order to improve drainage?
Yeah, water absorption, I mean, you are in a flood zone. And I think there's a lot of water coming off of, I mean, I don't live there, but I can see all the signs of water damage everywhere. And I gotta believe a lot of water is coming down that roadway and spilling in from that dished-out paved area where there used to be a driveway. In fact, the corner of that building, where the shadow is, it faces the street, you can see the shingles are rotted right off of it, and it's spongy looking. corner
On
of
the house itself?
On the
Yeah.
house itself. So I know there's some water issues.
And then I just have a question. If this is a total rebuild, would it require an IA system?
If they were doing a raise and replace,
Yeah.
Yeah, Yeah.
most likely it would,
that
yes.
would. Yeah.
So to move forward, it almost seems like you could withdraw the application and come back with like everything. I mean, because it feels like there's a lot missing and a lot that would have to change from like what this is. Right? I mean, either,
I mean, if they had come originally without
that one
that
picture.
attached,
Yeah.
and just the two parcels, we would, go with that. But now that we've, all of this, it seems like they have something in mind.
Right.
It's a three-bedroom home, correct? You don't know anything about the age of the septic system or?
Well, Board of Health statement mentions a Title V inspection is required when a change of footprint is proposed. So
Oh, so they would
changing,
have
yeah, that's what, under the Board of Health
And-
comments, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you read those comments, Steve?
Yeah, since the Board of Health knew it was new floor plans.
Right.
Addition of any habitable space that meets the bedroom definition would be considered an increase in flow. Okay. So any change, so they're saying any change in footprint in the flood zone requires Title V inspection?
I think that's anywhere.
Anywhere.
Oh, anywhere.
Anywhere, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can check with Engineering Works and see if that's in process.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so if it fails, then
Might as
saying
well.
that could be added in to the,
Right.
yeah.
So it sounds like Title V inspection hasn't occurred or is scheduled but hasn't occurred, we would need to wait for the results of that before we'd want to come back to you with any.
Because you could be looking at an IA system
Right.
needed to be installed, is my understanding.
Yeah.
And then that's gonna require trees coming down, and as it is, you need naturally vegetated area.
There would be
It's
a lot
little
more to the
premature.
project.
Yeah.
There'd be a lot more disturbance with the septic, obviously, so, yeah.
Be tight.
Well, we could have had a standing motion here tonight.
I think our future selves might be happy that we're,
Sorry?
our future selves might be happy that we're doing all the due diligence right tonight.
Right.
Because it's all.
To get it all cleaner for next time, but
Right.
like, oh my gosh, I hate this, not approving anything.
Yeah, I know,
It's what
but
it
don't
is.
hate worse.
Yeah.
Kicking it, that's what I was talking about earlier, kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, it's,
It creates problems, well, not just problems for the owners, but problems for all the consultants and the contractors and the,
Everyone.
everybody. You're trying to,
Gotta be right.
yeah.
you know, you can't make decisions based upon something that's not gonna be solid in the future. It's frustrating, but it's what it is. Everything's changing,
Right.
and everyone's gonna have gray hair.
So Mike, how would you like to?
Can we just quickly review so I
I was
can
gonna
bullet
say,
point
how do you want
this?
to proceed? Sure. Go ahead.
I just wanted to, just so we're clear on what the homework is. So determining if the improvements constitute a 50% betterment, or no, what's the wording? It's,
Well, it's more than 50% of the market value, which would require the whole building be upgraded to
Upgraded,
meet
okay.
flood zone requirements, which is no basement, flood vents, things
Okay.
like that.
okay, so it's, and I apologize, because I'm a conservation guy, I don't deal in buildings. So
Right.
it's, if the improvements result in a 50% increase of the market value,
The value, yep.
Yeah,
then that trick, okay, so I just want to get
That
yeah.
triggers that.
right, which would require more excavation, you know, and changes that way, you know.
right.
And I think an ISS
Versus, if you're saying you're just doing two small additions, it's small excavation, but if you have to bring the whole house up to flood zone requirements, then it's a tear-down rebuild with,
So we're not there yet, but we
Right.
might be, if that's what you're saying. We got to determine.
well,
that.
looking at that plan, it looks like it's, you know, gonna go past more than 50%, because
Okay.
it's,
Or otherwise, take
it's
the,
all new floor plan, all new roof structure, you know, the two additions, everything's, you know, cleaned out, so.
And just for my benefit, is that a formal process with building department?
Well, it gets, you know, submitted with the building permit,
Okay.
you know, and there has to be,
It's a different project.
So let's say you approve
Right.
this, which you won't tonight, but if you approve this, and then they went to get their building permit, and then building decides, no, this is a more than 50% market value betterment, and they have to become flood zone compliant, then would that mean they'd have to come back here for a revised or
amended order condition.
Right.
Yeah.
Come back for
It'd
an
be like
amended
redoing it
order,
all.
or you could close it out and then file a new one. It would be up to you from there. I would recommend an amended order at that point.
Okay. That's good. Okay, so that's that. All right, so that answers the potential flood foundation question. The naturally vegetated 10% coverage. So it sounds like if those trees on the lot don't already constitute a naturally vegetated area. And how do you calculate that? Do you do drip line from the tree? So in terms of determining coverage?
Yeah, but under it, I don't think can be like lawn. It's DVH, but it's also, I don't think under it can be lawn. It has to be.
Right.
We've just looked at this from so many angles and like with new language, so I would need to look at it again because.
I just want to know
I know what
if
we
I
were
ask the engineer to calculate naturally vegetated area, is he having me determine the diameter of the tree and we're just doing trunk area, or is he looking at the canopy? Is that considered?
So work with staff on that afterwards because it's all spelled out in the regs.
I'll send it out tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not a problem.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so there's that. Question about changing that paved road margin pad to gravel, if that's an option.
Yeah.
The driveway needs to be shown on the plan,
Driveway, yep, knew that.
yeah, and septic
Shown. And the septic what?
inspection to see if
Oh, the inspection,
To
right.
see if if it failed or an IA system needs to be installed.
If this is a whole new rebuild anyway, and it needs to be brought up to floodplain compliance, it is gonna have to be an
He's
IA.
gonna have to do it.
On a raise and
At that
replace.
point, yeah.
So-
it would have to be.
What's the definition of whole new rebuild? And again, I just know. I mean, I heard total rebuild, I heard whole new rebuild. Maybe Steve can answer that question. What is that?
It's the same
I
thing.
feel like it's the three-wall thing, isn't it?
It's got to be defined, right? What's
Well, if it goes past the 50% of the market
50%.
value, then it's a tear-down rebuild.
a tear down, so that
Yeah,
would be the
because it
trigger.
looks, if you look at that plan presented, it doesn't seem like there's anything of the house that's going to be remaining, because it's a whole new roof structure, whole new floor plan layout, then you have two new foundation.
Foundation.
I guess what I'm
Well
asking
said.
is does the building department define total rebuild or whole new rebuild?
I think
So-
above
When it goes
50%.
past 50% of the.
50% of the value, because then
believe
you
it's-
have to bring it to floodplain standards, so then you are doing everything.
I understand that,
Yeah,
I
but-
understand. I just, when you,
If-
I mean,
well,
it's very,
when it goes
what
past
you may
fif-
think, Alex, is total rebuild, Steve may think it's something else, I may think it's something else.
Right.
Okay.
Sandra may think something else, you know, so I mean, I
So
see that the floor plan.
in terms of purview, it's not ours. I think
Yeah.
the best person that would answer that for you is the building commissioner. When you go to get the permits all squared away for this,
Yeah.
they're going to look at it and say, hey, look at, you're at 50% or greater of the value of the home, so, and then they'll advise you from there.
It would seem to me then the contractor needs to have a kind of a sit-down with someone at the building department and get an opinion from
That would
them.
be good.
Yeah, I'd recommend whoever did the floor plan for this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting peaked.
We've been at it for a couple hours. What else do we have? That, I think that was it. I don't know if there's others.
So what are we doing?
And it will all be worked at, she said.
So,
Someday.
Mike, you're going to ask for continuance?
Oh, yeah.
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 Okay.
Okay, so do you know all the conditions there, Steve?
When do
Yeah,
you
we-
want
yeah.
it for?
Just to con-
Yeah.
January, February,
What's your next?
Next is
Available.
January 25th.
25th?
Yeah.
6:45?
Yeah.
All right.
January 25,
6:45.
6:45. Okay. I would accept a motion.
Good discussion.
Great.
Doing our homework
This is
at home.
construction conservation 101.
I would accept a motion. for the-
Honestly, I've been consulting for
Yeah,
what,
so
28
moved.
years now, and
Thank you, Steve.
Second.
every hearing I learn a little bit more, a little bit more, and a little bit more. Just
Okay, so we have a motion made and seconded, Steve and Alex, for the continuance. Any further discussion? I hope not, but it might be. Andy, no? Okay. I'll take a vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Thank you all
Mike.
very much.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Good luck. You'll all be for the best. You'll all be for the best. I believe that.
All right. Two more, we can do it.
Right.
Three.
It will. Over
Three
time, it will become more. Me too. I did too, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to call the 6:12 hearing for 119 Daniels Island Road, Rowland Bates, proposed pier ramp and float with access path. Representative is BSC Group. Owner of record is New Seaberry Properties LLC. This is a notice of intent, and the file number
Is 433261.
3261.
Yes, sir.
433261. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Hannah Raditz, wetland scientist with BSC, and with me tonight,
Is Nicholas Galanis with New Seabury Homes.
also on the call is Brian Irrigation, engineer with BSC. I'll just go into a quick overview of the project while we pull up the plans, which might be helpful just to visualize. That's perfect. So the proposed project is across two lots, 119 Daniels Island Road and 15 Waterway, though the bulk of the work is on the 119 Daniels Island Road. The proposed work involves the installation of a new pier, ramp, and float system with a tidal water body associated with Pompanesett Bay. And then there'll be additional work involving placing 4-foot wide gravel on an existing access trail, which can be seen coming from the property at 15 Waterway, where there is the outline of a future dwelling to be proposed. The outline of that dwelling is not final, and it's not what is being proposed with this project. It's limited to the access and the pier. The pier dimensions are a pier that's 35.2 feet long by 4 feet wide, a seasonal ramp which is 12 feet long by 3 feet wide, a float that is 6 feet wide by 30 feet long, 180 square feet in total, 11 pilings to support these structures, which are 12-inch diameter. So that's the pier in size. The impacts to land under ocean are 4 square feet associated with pilings, with 2 square feet of impacts to the edge of salt marsh, edge of coastal beach, for 2 pilings. The area of pier that is over salt marsh will be graded so that sunlight can penetrate through. The project will comply with all regulations, 27 for residential docks, as well as 29 for work within buffer zones, to allow for that path to have gravel installed on it. The existing path, from the photos, it's pretty obvious it's cleared from 5 feet to 6 feet wide. We don't intend to do any tree clearing or shrub clearing, perhaps just some branches to be snipped. Those would be removed from the site. And that would be the primary access for the construction of the pier. The pilings would be installed by barge at high tide to prevent any scour. And the applicant is amenable to using any time of year restrictions that might be given by Shellfish Constable or thereof. That's the majority of the important parts, so I'll just open up to the commissioners for their questions.
Thank you.
Who will be using this dock?
It's a private dock for the owner of the property of the intended house.
At which lot?
15 Waterway. So it's the one on the bottom of the screen. If you look at the plan where there's the box-looking house.
So is the other lot intended to be built upon at some point?
I don't believe there's a plan for that.
No, I'd have to look at the size. Can you zoom in? What is the footprint on that, the box that we have on there?
I don't think we have a footprint on that.
Yeah, he didn't have it.
Just to suggest so that there wasn't any
Suggested
confusion.
home, they're both owned by us as well. If we have to expand a little bit, we may expand over a little bit on that side, but with the home footprint.
So,
It's just
are
awkward
there
being on
more
two
than
lots.
one owner to the property that we're looking at?
No, they're both owned by us.
There are-
New Seabury
New
owns
Seabury
both
owns, yes.
properties.
New Seabury owns both properties. That's what I thought. So the request is coming actually from New Seabury.
Mhm.
Okay. And not to build a private home on it.
Not a part of this application.
And you're not gonna clear, that's got a lot of trees there.
Oh, no, but that's just associated with the path. So for the dwelling, that's not a part of this application. But there's no proposed tree clearing or shrub clearing associated with establishing the 4-foot wide gravel path.
I know, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm very familiar with the area, I walk it a lot.
Yeah.
It's odd to ask for a deck. That's a long deck.
Oh, it's not a deck, it's a pier.
I mean, a pier, okay. But leading through that property, there is a great deal, it seems impossible to do unless you clear portions of it. And you're saying you're not going to clear it, or
The ex-
am I missing?
If you look at the photos, it might be, I can't necessarily say which photo, but you might notice that there's a path in one of the photos. That pathway was able to be traveled by,
You see right there, there's actually there's old pilings on either side right there, and it's basically a straight shot right to the water right there. There's nothing to clear.
it's,
The trees that are there.
no need to
trees on
treat
that path.
it,
If you walk
no
that
need
path,
to
there's
clear
nothing
them. It's,
And there's nothing, we wouldn't be clearing any of that area. This would be behind the proposed, eventually, the house that we are going to build in front. It's
So the
not,
house that
it's,
you're going to build is going to be on the corner of Daniels Island and that little weird jib thing.
they'll be at 15 Waterway.
it's behind that house that's
15
on,
the
it's
house
behind
that's-
the house that's on that corner right there. So there's a house,
And you're going to leave that house there?
yeah, that's not ours. That's owned by somebody else.
So this property line that I'm seeing is somebody else.
Correct.
You're representing New Seabury.
So
So is this where the,
that lot there and this lot over here are both owned by us.
Yep, those two.
so is that what I would refer to, or with some of the other folks who've been down here a while, as the old tennis courts?
The tennis courts are farther down, more towards the marina.
Okay.
There is 4 lots here that go all the way to the
Yeah, I
marina.
thought so.
And the one closest to the marina has tennis courts. Then there's 1 lot, and then we're at 119 Daniels Island, and then 15 Waterway.
Yeah, if you bring that, I don't know if you can see this, like, this is where that inlet is right here.
Yeah.
The tennis courts are over in this area right over here. These are the 2 lots in
Yeah, it's
question.
hard to tell, isn't it, because
Yeah.
they're so overgrown.
It's,
anyway.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, so you're gonna put a private home there someday. So the dock is gonna be for the private home
Correct.
to enhance the value of this piece of property that's adjacent to the one that currently has a small home on it. The one that had a little pool on it, and it's,
There's no homes on
There's
either
no
of the
homes on it,
properties.
no, not on your property, but on the adjacent property.
But this pier is for the
This is-
potential future
No,
home
I
on.
understand, that's what I'm trying to figure out, where you're gonna put it and what the purpose is. It looks as though, and maybe I'm not getting it, so, looks as though,
Would the future potential resident of this property own both lots?
Yes.
And the house next door's, the edge of the house next door is on the property line.
Edge of the house. Can you pull that back up?
Yeah.
Yeah, the project
That is a
plans.
house, right?
Am I seeing that correctly? To the south?
13346?
You know what? I don't know what that is. That's not the house. You're talking about that little area next to.
That's not a house?
Right there.
Right there.
No, it's not. The house is actually further up towards the Jib and Waterway.
Okay.
Maybe it was at one time a
well,
house on there.
I think that is the house, the
It's,
little one that's there now.
No, that's closer to the
Brian
jib.
might have something
The
to,
house that says closer to the jib.
Brian might have something
Hey,
to say.
Brian, you have anything to say?
Good evening. I don't know if folks can hear me, but for the record, my name is Brian Yergation, professional engineer with BSC Group. I understand why it looks like a house. That's actually just the limits of pavement, which we located on the adjacent property.
Okay,
Limits of paved.
so there's pavement on the adjacent property. Thank you.
So there is no house there.
And what did you say the address will be for these two?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure what the address is?
right now it's gonna be, well, it's 15.
For the
Waterway, I
dwelling,
believe, yeah.
15 Waterway, but I don't believe they'll be combined, right?
In 119 Daniels Island Road.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which might.
So the entry would be from Daniels Island Road?
correct.
But the
Because I don't
lots,
think that there is a legal entrance from here into that area.
No, you couldn't get around to the
Because I
back
can
of
see,
the
that's
house.
one of your pictures is, there's a very clearly defined driveway. It's not professionally done, but the driveway that you show. in
To go
one
on
of the
down that
pictures.
pathway.
It's a path, yeah.
Well,
No one
it's
uses-
wide enough for a truck.
Yeah, which is why no tree clearing or shrub clearing will be needed for that
Right,
path.
but going down to the water, yeah, well,
Yeah, but where is the path? It's not shown on this plan.
Oh, the path is shown crossing with those dotted lines right
It's
there.
on both lots.
Yeah, it goes from one corner down to the pier.
Okay, so this shows proposed 4-foot gravel walkway. Okay,
Yeah, they're proposing to put gravel within.
right, but where's the existing pathway?
From the road?
Yeah, from the road, and where's it
Right.
tying in? Because if you're gonna build this pier and walkway and tie it into the existing pathway, if this house isn't here.
I think
So-
that would be in a future application. At this point, that's
Yeah,
all
but
that they're
if
requesting.
The existing walkway should be, a path should be shown. Where does that path start, where does it end?
Right, for access.
And then where you
Right.
tying this proposed gravel walkway into that existing pathway?
I think that for the purposes of just having it be a gravel pathway, that's where it's going to start. But for the access for construction, it would probably line up about with the roadway. So continuing that
Yeah,
path
I'm just saying
along.
that all the information isn't here. If you're
With
gonna
the
use that for
existing pathway on
construction,
there, yeah.
okay, what type of equipment, you bringing trucks down here, you bringing
Ve-
backhoes, you bringing
I don't-
dingos, what's,
That's why we were doing the gravel, it would be bare minimum to stay on that pathway, so it doesn't disrupt that area right now.
So you couldn't just do like a symbolic fencing with twine, like, what, do you need the gravel to stabilize it?
At this time, no, we don't.
Okay.
It was just giving a walkway for the future home that is going to go there.
Right, so, yeah, that's my concern, is, okay, where does the existing path stop? Because
Right.
I saw it, I was out there, I could see it, but where does it go? Where does it start, where does it end, and how does this path tie into it? So, you guys left out a crucial piece of
So it's
information.
the existing path that needs to be on the plan.
Yeah, yeah, because if you're saying,
It's
because this house is gonna be in the future, so is it, a
Right.
year in the future, 10 years in the future, that path is gonna, somebody's gonna park their vehicle on Daniels Island Road or pull it off into, maybe it's, it's wide enough to pull off a car, and then they can use that path to go to that dock with a boat on it, I assume. Is that a correct
Yeah,
statement?
I mean, that house will be built sooner than, we're already working on the plans for that home to go in there. That's why we want to get this.
But
so-
you're asking us to approve a plan that doesn't have all the information, saying, okay, this is gonna be a future house with this on it. If you just said, okay, here's a plan, and you come back with a separate NOI for the house, then,
So it's not acceptable to have the polygon indicating the location of the house on the plan?
yeah, because
Well,
it doesn't
that-
come in, because you're using an existing path, and somebody's gonna park out on Daniels Island Road and use this until you build that house. So where is that existing path? Where does it start? Where does it end? What's the width of it?
What do you
If you're
mean
saying
using
you're gonna
the
bring in equipment, what equipment are you gonna bring all the way down a 4-foot wide path?
This is probably like a small skid
Yeah,
steer,
just to pull the gravel, that would
Yeah,
be.
but-
just for the gravel.
Okay, skid steers need more than 4 foot of width to operate in. And saying, okay, you're gonna
With
trim
that-
trees and everything.
Well, the access road is wider than 4 feet. We're only proposing 4 feet wide of gravel because that's the limit. But the access that's clear, that trail, is at least 6 to 8 feet, some places up to 10 feet wide. So I don't have a concern about the skid steer getting down there.
Well, at
Right,
least
you
that
just
first part
can't
of it,
see
but the
it.
rest of it, all the way down. 4 foot.
It's a little bit wider than that with
Yeah,
the
the
clear.
majority of this is going to go in when the house is getting built as well. I'm just doing this to be proactive, so I don't have to disrupt any of the vegetation around where the house would be. We have a path there now to be able to travel that. If not, when we start building the house, we're obviously gonna have to go around everything. Just trying to get our ducks in a row with what this is.
If the
So it
commission,
seems to, are you done, Steve? I don't want to interrupt your train of thought here.
No, I'm all set.
You're all set? It seems to me, as I was saying, so I've seen this property from both Daniels and I've seen it from Waterway, and it does not appear to be consistent with the reality of this piece of water. you know, if you walk Waterway and then come up to the jib, take a right on Daniels Island.
It's, yeah, it's almost not accessible from the waterway.
It's only
more
accessible
Daniels.
through, if you get permission from the current homeowner on this
To go,
little.
yeah, the one on the corner lot there.
The corner
Yeah.
lot, and they'll let you in so that you get on that pathway, that I believe is what you're showing in photo one, which is very pretty pathway through the woods, right? Photo one, you guys see photo one?
Is that, I can't see
The
that.
existing footpath runs parallel to the water edge. And in order to get any sort of a pier, I'm just saying so that everyone can understand, any sort of a pier, you're gonna have to remove substantial foliage that's down there. I
A
mean,
lot
you
of-
can't- So, my question is, I'm just being really straight here, is to say, are these gonna be, these two parcels gonna be sold together?
Yes.
So it'd be far more valuable if they end up being waterfront property, which they're not, no. That property's not waterfront.
You won't, you're not gonna be able to get waterfront with the 75-foot.
Well, but that's why you're putting in a pier, right? To go out over the water, right?
No, I'm talking, the house is not gonna, won't be waterfront. The house is
No, the
not gonna
house,
be up
but
to
the,
it.
no, but the property that the house will be on will be waterfront. And it makes, and it
It'll be-
increases the value.
correct.
I'm just asking you to sort of clear up, it just seems odd without some sort of explanation of what the main plan is. Why would you go into this what's the word I'm looking for? It's rough, raw area. Lots of beautiful trees, but lots of trees. It's not where you would go in. You'd have to do a great deal of clearing in order to sell this property as a future home. And you'd have to go through a great deal of vegetation to expose the water where you're looking to put your pier.
That area is cleared enough that they can get a truck in with the loads of equipment that they'll need to install this pier by hand. They don't need to do any tree clearing along the water.
I highly doubt it.
I thought you
I'll go
said,
back to walk it again.
No,
Wait, I
guarantee
thought you
I'll
said
walk
it was
with
being
you.
installed by barge.
It's a very wide
But
path.
I'm
pilings-
just saying, it's very close to my home, so I walk it
Yeah.
all.
Okay.
But the pier itself would be installed by hand. They could probably bring in a small, like, I'm thinking pickup truck of the loads of material that they need. They can walk that in with wheelbarrows, and then they'll work their way from the upland over the salt marsh and into the water, and then the pilings will have been there to support the structure.
Truck? I can't see a pickup truck. One time, 4-foot pathway.
If you've been down there, if you want to come down, I'll show you exactly where it is. I've walked the path several times. It's a wide berth of going down that road right there.
Which road?
Off of
where
Daniels
the
Island,
access
where the
is
access
shown.
is.
Yeah, but
Your photo one?
That's part of it.
Can I see that?
right, but it doesn't show where the width, the path, where the existing path
Right.
goes and terminates. So now you're asking to bring equipment, vehicles
Yeah.
down
Well,
through a naturally vegetated wetland.
It's not going through wetland, it's going through upland and buffer zone.
No, this is all wetland. This is all wetland.
The wetland was delineated, but the part of the access road that it's through is an upland or
If
buffer
it's,
zone.
if it's flood zone, it's a wetland, based on
It's a resource area.
resource area, yeah. It's regulations, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's considered coastal wetland, exactly.
seems like just an odd proposal. Am I the only one that thinks that? Well, I mean, I just want to put it out on the table that I knew that the property next to the little house was owned by New Sebring, and that we all expected that at some point that property would want to be sold and marketed as a future site for someone's home, right? So if that's the case and you're looking to clear it and put the pier in to make it more marketable, that's okay to say, but it's going to require something that the rest of the commission needs to understand. It's going to require a great deal of removal of foliage,
But it does not.
mature foliage.
But it, well,
We're not
not for the house, just,
Not for the house, no.
You mean
There's no foliage required for the access. There's no
There's
foliage
no
removal.
foliage required, there's no
for the pier.
removal required to put in this pier?
No, that area was chosen because it's the narrowest area of the salt marsh and also because of it an exposed area by the edge of the water. If tree removals were required, then they would have been included on the plan, but the area as it is doesn't require any tree clearing for the installation of the pier.
Yeah, I think the
I have a
hang up,
problem.
I think the hang up maybe.
Yes, what is
Maybe.
it?
It like, so on certain parts of this, there's symbology showing edge of vegetation, right? But then in here, there are open areas and it's not showing the edges of the vegetation for what's existing down to the pier. I think that might be where the hang up is happening.
It's not showing,
It's not showing the edges of the vegetation
no.
and the currently open areas.
So
Because
if
if we could see the areas that are currently open, and then that's all you're trying to access through, I think that would clarify for
So if
some.
we were to shoot the tree line and the line of vegetation for the entirety of the access path down to the pier and also from where it connects to the road, that would clear things up?
Currently open areas, yeah. I think that's what's
Well,
happening.
that definitely would clear things
Right?
up.
I think that's what's happening.
Right, but then you're also asking to bring construction equipment down across a wetland and on a vegetated area. So,
To like the top of a coastal bank,
yeah,
to
so
the
you
edge of the
get,
salt
you
marsh.
know, heavy rain, muddy, okay, equipment's gonna tear up, pickup truck, skid steers, whatever, it's gonna tear that whole area right up.
Yeah, it would like tear up the AE zone.
Yeah, it's a,
Right.
okay, it's a path that's probably been there for 40 years or whatever, you know, so it's there, but you throw a vehicle on there, the path is forever changed.
So, and I think what also would need to happen, to just make it easier, is there's gonna need to be mitigation for the gravel. And I would almost say for the footprint of the dock.
It was my understanding that the limits of the gravel fell under the regulations for an allowable 4-foot wide walkway within buffer zone.
This is recommending 2-to-1 mitigation plantings in the area that's cleared on the top of the coastal bank. So, Dan, that 2-to-1 requirement,
Yeah, the top of the coastal bank, you have quite the clearing going on down there. You can see it in the pictures right here, with this clearing and this clearing around the top of the coastal bank. There's multiple stumps from trees, 4 to 5 to 6 inches wide. I assume it's probably neighborhood or whatnot, but the fact of the matter is, it is cleared, the top of the coastal bank, so that does need to be addressed,
okay.
so. with
So
any-
it's almost, it's, for clarity, it's basically wrapping in the enforcement of previously cleared areas that were unapproved.
Yes, any
and it's-
violation is a 2-to-1 mitigation ratio.
Yeah, okay. So it's taking a violation and dealing with it under the order through, through showing where the mitigation plans will go. Okay. So when we don't have, at the end of the year, our tally doesn't show loads of enforcements, we are wrapping it in to this for the viewers at home.
I just want to understand what you're saying, though.
When I went on site, I noticed at the top of the coastal bank here, it had clearing and it had visible stumps that were flush cut. They weren't just kicked over or storm events, they were flush cut.
On these properties.
Right here in particular. Was
Right,
the stumps, and
okay.
then you can see them here in the picture. You can see them vaguely sticking out of the ground. So that is the top, that is the very top of the coastal bank. So that is a violation. So within this, when I noticed that this could be incorporated into the remediation, and the reasoning for that is because there's no shellfish mitigation fee, because this is not a shellfishing area. So for the installation of this dock, there would be no shellfishing fee. So for mitigation in this case, I felt that this was completely acceptable to include.
So
As a condition.
there is no shellfish mitigation fee because there's no shellfish in this area.
Yeah, this is not a shellfish zone.
This is though footprint within the wetland, within a resource area.
Absolutely.
So we can condition for mitigation of the footprint of the pier and dock it's not in the form of a financial contribution to shellfishing, but we can ask for vegetation to offset that footprint
The piers,
for the piers.
yes.
That's within our purview.
Yeah, it is within within the purview as long as, you know, the salt marsh isn't being deteriorated or anything from the construction. And I do believe you said there's going to be sunlight penetration
It's going to be graded over the top of the salt marsh.
over the top of it. So if there is going to be disturbance such as that, yes, then you could accommodate for that. With with the area of the float or anything, that's not within us. That would be within the shellfishing.
No, I believe that for the square footage of that, we are approving square footage of footprint, even though it's a dock, even though there's not shellfish there, because it's square footage within the resource area, we can require plantings to offset that.
Oh, okay, I hear what you're saying. Yes, so compensatory plantings like that, the commission
Yes.
has the purview to require.
Yeah,
Yes, I'm
the
sorry.
compensatory.
Yes, I understand
Yep.
now.
So, yeah, maybe not mitigation, but whatever, compensatory.
Those wouldn't be mitigation, that'd be compensating plantings that the commission can render if they feel acceptable in this case, so, yeah.
Well, so take that one step further for me, Dan. So if you look at
Right?
the drawing, to gain access to where they're going over with the float, et cetera, that, for lack of a better word, pathway, sort of a rough pathway, right? That goes through the backside of this plot and back over to the other side. Does that jive for you? Because you walked this too.
I did.
So,
I have,
and I did several times, so I just want to make sure that I'm understanding you, and I trust you here.
yeah, when it
Does
comes,
that jive with you with having that much clearing between the access point and where they're proposing the pier to see the water? Because I think we have different standards, don't we, for clearing waterways that are, you know,
clearing the vegetation within the buffer zone?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking? Yes, we do. We do.
I just want to make sure that we're putting it in the right. In my experience walking this area, it's not that clear. It's going to require, in my opinion, and we could all walk down and go, and you've challenged me, so I'm Irish, you know, I'm going to say, hey, I
Give me
think
a
I'm
call.
right. I think, you know. So it's not that clear, in my experience. There's that clear path. Again, go back to
I think you're talking, so,
photo one. I'm sorry, just let me say
Yeah,
it,
no
so then you
problem.
can answer all my questions. That clearing, I recognize, comes up here, but down by the water, no, just,
no, that clearing's on Daniels Island.
I'm sorry?
That clearing is on Daniels Island. That picture is from Daniels Island.
From Daniels Island looking down towards
Correct.
the water.
There's not an access from waterway coming over to that side.
Oh, yeah, there is. If you go through the
Have you
gym.
been walking?
No, that property was for sale for a long time, and I know a lot of people that did wanted to see it, so it's totally legit, a lot of people. And there is an access to that rough pathway that goes through the woods, it goes through the woods.
Okay, I haven't got
And they belong to New Seabury, so, yeah, well, they're legal, but people drive up
You
and
have
down.
to cross over the 17 waterway
I'm
property
sorry,
to get there, though, from waterway. I'm following what you're saying.
you have to what?
You actually have to cross over 17 waterway
That's right.
in order to get there, so it's not really legal access for our property from waterway
No, not
onto
unless, not
where that
unless,
clearing is shown on the plan. And it is shown by the near intersection of two tree lines.
Those tree lines.
no, so what I'm
It's just
saying.
to the north of the loop road on waterway.
But if the property owners invite you
Or
in,
something.
it's
My
pretty,
blood sugar
it's
level.
pretty open access and trucks go there
I'm doing bad.
frequently, with permission, I'm sure, from the owners, but I'm just saying, I'm trying to, if I'm wrong, I will stand corrected, but I see these as two different places in that area. One is clear access to the water, and one would need to be cleared considerably in order to accommodate a pier, that's all I'm saying.
Okay, so let me bring some organized thought to all of this. Steve, you're looking for a plan that shows the existing pathway from the street all the way down. Is that what you wanted to see?
Yes, yes, and then, you know, if a vehicle's gonna be parked, you know, is there a parking spot proposed out by the street? Because if somebody's gonna access that, they're gonna park a vehicle.
No, no parking spot. And if it was a concern of the commission, we could put some sort of signage or blockage. This isn't
So
intended
how
to
would
be.
This is
somebody-
not gonna be public
This isn't-
access, and this, when we
So,
build a
so
house.
you're gonna build a dock and nobody's gonna use it for a period of time then?
Correct.
It's just for permitting also.
Yeah, this is all for permitting process, so this is, while the house is being built, the dock will be built as well.
Okay. All right, that
We're not
clarifies
gonna do
that.
this now and have people on this dock, no, that's not gonna happen.
Okay. And then,
And Alex, you wanted to see,
well, excuse me, Paul, and then the other thing is vehicular access down that path. That's gonna, it says, you know, right in the regulations that not to alter land subject to storm
Okay.
coastal storm flowage.
okay,
So that was the other thing too, is, you know, I think typically this commission's approved for docks and piers, all work to be from seaward,
right.
not from
Not from
land unless,
Right.
you know, unless it's already disturbed areas, right? This
Would
is
track-
Undisturbed areas.
Would track pads on the access road be helpful to alleviating your concern about marking up flood zone?
I just see any construction vehicles going down that path is gonna alter naturally vegetated areas.
But adding track pads would remove the risk of having rutting. Track pads like plastic mats that the trucks would be confined to drive over, because it doesn't
Then you're
disturb
gonna have to
roots.
put in erosion control all the way down those paths. So what happens if a vehicle gets off that pad? Then you're into vegetated area. Just,
Yep, okay. I'm just trying to get an organized list of
Right, yeah.
what we have before us and what we're asking additionally. Alex, you had mentioned some type of indication as to where the vegetation is as opposed to the open areas?
Yeah, I mean, it's shown for the, like, along the edge for the neighbor, but if it's
Right.
shown for this property where the openings are and the vegetation and where the edges are, I think that would be able to help us proceed.
Okay. Marjorie, what were your concerns with the map, or was there?
No, my concerns are very similar to Alex's. I am doubting the scope of this, and I would like to see where the vegetation is. My
More
memory-
delineation on the plan.
Particularly as it goes to the waterfront.
Right, okay. Sandy, is there something
Nothing.
you're looking for
Nothing
as
else.
well? I concur with the commissioners that are looking for information that's lacking on the plan, and I would suggest that you would request a continuance and come back with a plan that's more definitive as to the existing path, open areas, vegetation, and some type of a plan for vehicular access, construction equipment to go in there, versus using a barge to do it from the water end.
Before I request a continuance, can I just ask some clarifying questions?
Sure.
The mitigation plantings were brought up as a result of the gravel path, is that correct? The adding of gravel to the path requires mitigation plantings? Is
I
that what
might have been mistaken when I said that, but
Oh, no, the gravel.
I think I was
you-
mistaken when I
The,
said
the
that.
the
Okay.
4-foot wide path is a right.
Okay,
You know,
I was
that's
just
one of those
making sure
things.
that. And then the other thing that was sort of related is, you mentioned enforcement. So is this an old enforcement case or something that you
No,
just
just I
noted?
noticed it on the site.
Okay,
So this
Just
is
noticed
wrapping
it.
it, yeah, it's wrapping it into this order of conditions so that we're not opening up an enforcement order and holding that against the deed also. It's
Okay.
just
Re-
one,
The reason I also did that is because if that was the case, this application would have to be either held off or withdrawn until that is
Yeah.
brought into compliance. And in all reality, this is something that can be brought into compliance just by this hearing. So that I didn't feel was appropriate to just do it the other way.
Okay, so in
That is
addition.
the one helpful thing we were trying to do.
Yeah.
It's the neighbor kids with the lawn chairs and beer cans that are
That's,
sitting out there.
that's what I
taking
imagined,
things
honestly.
down,
I was
guaranteed.
like,
Do we have an estimate as to how much mitigation we're looking for?
No, no. It would be those two clearings in particular on the coastal bank, and then whatever Alex would recommend for compensatory plantings from there.
If you could send us whatever info you have on those areas that are cleared, and then we'll probably have to shoot that with GPS so we can include it on the plan, then we'll get a number for how much of that area needs to be planted, and come back.
I can give you that, that's all.
Okay.
And Marjorie, did you want to set up an organized site visit with the owner?
I'd be happy to.
I'll give you my card.
What's your first
You can
name?
call me Nick.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah, well, we do that from time to time.
Okay, I was just trying to, wrap some type of structure around all the things that I heard throughout the hearing, and just to get a bulleted list so I knew where I was before I turn it over to Dan for his comments.
Yep.
Yeah, and one more thing, Paul.
Yes.
Is removal of that footprint of the house, because if the house isn't being proposed in this notice of intent, it doesn't need to be there.
Consistent.
Yeah, right. So you
Right.
can- yeah.
Well, that would have to come out in order to show the existing roadway that's there, this, 6 foot, 8 foot, 10 foot, whatever it is.
Right.
Okay.
Can we ascertain if there is currently now access from Daniels Island Road into this area so that you could actually drive a car down to see it, or not?
That's my understanding. Brian, do you have any?
That's this entrance right here.
Yeah, that's that
Yeah.
entrance right there. You can't drive in there right now because there's two stones across
Yeah.
the pathway.
That existing trail is ostensibly from a Daniels Island
Yep.
perspective?
That's the one I was in question that we were talking about. I said it's very wide going down.
If I can get my car down there,
Oh, no, please don't.
Right? Well, that's what I'm saying.
So just very briefly, I just want to make sure that both these lots, were they deemed developable and everything? Because that's out of my wheelhouse. I just want to make sure.
That's what we're looking into now with.
You are looking
BSC,
into that.
yes.
That's a question I think that definitely this commission would
Yeah.
need to know for both lots, or in particular, definitely the 15 waterway. They would definitely need to know to make a decision on this. So, if these lots are developable, so that's number one.
Yeah, so that being said, I know you guys have been bringing up the wetland subject. We'd have to look at that, where that wetlands falls in and where it falls in with the special permit for New Seabury as well.
Yes, yes. And the other reason I asked that, because in 95, there was a plan for a house to be built there. Never went through. I have a PDF if you want to see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
90.
You've got the expanded buffer zone too, so that other lot is,
Yes.
Right.
there's not a lot of room there.
That's not what I want. Oh, don't tell me it's not reading.
And we wouldn't approve just a pier that's not to a house, typically, right? I
Has
mean,
that ever been done?
So this is
Well,
from
during- not my
95.
tenure.
I don't know.
That was, there's no paperwork on whether it was permitted or approved, but I just found this plan on Laserfish. Clearly, it was never done. You weren't aware of this, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, because that tells
Yeah,
me
I
that there
don't-
might have
No, I
been,
don't know anything about.
okay.
Which one's that?
Well, and look at how it has
This
waterway.
is the exact location on Waterway, on 15
That's
Waterway.
that's the
15
little
Waterway.
house that's currently there.
No, this is the proposed one that they proposed in 1995 in the
Oh,
exact
way back
location.
Look at where the
The
gym
exact
is.
location.
Before me.
Yeah, it was, okay. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure, because my main question was,
Yeah.
was it tried to be permitted and was denied, or was it just withdrawn? You know what I mean?
I have no clue.
Okay, and that was the reasoning, that was the rationale for asking if the lots are
Yeah.
buildable. That was the reasoning for that. So, that was one thing I definitely wanted to make sure the commission knew before anything. So, and
Hypothetically, if it had been denied, would that information be readily available to the commission?
if it was, it would have been on Laserfish, so that tells me that it was most likely either taken back, or this was just a preliminary seeing what the thoughts
Yeah.
were in
Okay.
town.
It's interesting, though, that they didn't continue waterway as a private way into that lot as it was in the Laserfish one.
Exactly, so.
Right.
So that was just a question if the lot was buildable. It sounds like you're definitely looking into that, so that's something. And that was really it for that. That was one of the biggest questions. When it comes to order of operations, I just want to let everyone know, New Seabury has their own essentially zoning when it comes to building a primary structure before an accessory structure. So they are absolutely allowed to do this. If they wanted to build the dock first, they absolutely could. So I just want to make that known as well.
Typically, we do not allow.
No, you have
an
to build the house
appurtenance
before you
the
even
house.
start
Right.
doing any other appurtenances of the property. Yes.
So how does that come down, Dan, in terms of who has jurisdiction between New Seabury and
When it comes,
town of Mashpee?
when it comes down to the town of Mashpee in this situation, this would be through the conscom, because pretty much both lots with the 150-foot buffer zone are within jurisdiction.
Within our jurisdiction?
Within our jurisdiction. And then obviously they have to go through the building permits, don't get me wrong. But when it comes to zoning, I don't believe you have to go through the ZBA for approval on
Correct.
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't have to go through ZBA for this. So, that's all. So everything was pretty much covered from mitigations in the coastal bank. Location is not considered shellfish habitat by Shellfish Constable. There is no navigation concerns by the harbor master. So the installation is a good location considering current site conditions. So I recommended a continuance to acquire if the lots were developable, as well as I figured there might be some other questions from the commission. So that was my recommendation on this.
So,
Okay.
what month do you want?
Then-
January, February, when are we doing this?
So it would be the end of January. Do you
January
think that that's,
25th
or we
or
could go for
February
the February meeting? if you
We're
think
looking
it-
at February 15th.
All right, there you go. Sorry.
To get everything in a row.
We're looking at what?
Yeah.
February 15th.
That's 6:33 is February 15th.
February 15th?
Yeah.
What was the time?
6:33?
6:33?
That way we
And
also
any
have time to get back to
give a
the
quick
site.
recap of what we're asking
Yes.
the applicants
um,
to do?
From my notes, on the new plan, the existing pathway, total pathway needs to be delineated.
Great.
Whether or not there's a parking space, I know you said there wasn't, so, but if there is going to be a parking space for somebody, even one vehicle, we'd like to know where that is. The whole issue of vehicular access needs to be ironed out. On the revised plan, open and vegetated areas need to be clearly depicted. Address the old cutting mitigation so that we have some sense of how much mitigation we are going to put in there in terms of square footage. And there was one other one I didn't write down, but just came to mind.
Plantings, the 2-to-1 mitigation,
It's a minimum 2 to 1.
Yep.
exactly.
Yes.
2-to-1 for the enforcement.
So Paul, on
And
the
I think that's it.
vegetation, maybe if you- I just want to make sure that we know the difference between what needs to be cleared and what doesn't. It sounds like you're saying it doesn't need to be any clearing in order to complete your project. And I may be wrong, but I believe there were quite a few trees that would have to be cleared in order for this to be
Right.
achieved.
Well, when we get this new revised map, as soon as we get it, you should take the time to go down and walk that path.
Oh, yeah?
And if you want to go with the owner, that's great, because I think you could shed a lot of light on this.
I'm bringing a tape recorder and a video.
And I think that's what we need. Nothing else?
I'm going to ace it off.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to continue to February 15th
Thank
at
you, Alex.
6:33 PM.
And a second by Steve.
It was very loud.
Any further discussion? We're good with everything? You guys are good? You know exactly what we want? Okay. Then I will call for a vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. So we'll see you on the 15th of February, and at least Marjorie will see you sooner.
So how do you want to do this? Should we go through Dan just to keep it kosher, or do you want to give me your card?
Thank you all for your
You do
time.
this at your own peril, you know? Okay.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Drive safely.
Sorry.
We're on a roll tonight.
To Pompanesett Island Road, Dan, when would that be continued to? January 25th at what time?
They didn't really say, so we're gonna just go for February in that one.
So now they're at February
He was-
15th at
Let me
6:36?
Let me open that up. and
Yeah.
dispense with that. Now calling the 6:15 hearing for 2 Pompanesett Island Road, Brian Miller. This is a proposed cobble apron at the driveway near the
Alex.
bridge. representative is South, and the owner of record is All Shar Realty Trust. It's a request for determination of applicability. And we do have a request to continue
And,
to January 25th.
but no,
Yes.
is it January 25th?
Yeah, I just,
Okay.
Stacy must put it on there.
That's one of
So,
the taken slots.
yeah, January 25th at 6:39.
6:39.
And just so we're clear, the reasoning for this, he didn't have a solution for what he had. His landscaper came back with a solution, so now they're drafting it up.
Okay.
So they wanted to come with a solution so they didn't have to come back. And
Is that some kind of a swale or something in front of the cobbles
Yes.
for the runoff?
so he put I don't know if it's gonna be a swale or more of like a French style drain. I don't know how they're gonna pull it off, but he said he could do it with minimal to no disturbance. So that was a thing for me. And they can come in without getting a continuance and just do it.
You know,
all
the
in one
note
day.
from the owner said he thought there might be a need for a swale or something.
Yeah, the landscaper said he could do it with that.
Okay, do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Steve. Thank you, Alex. Any further discussion? Being none, Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. So that one's continued to the 25th January.
All right.
Okay, now calling the 6:18 hearing for 6 Ned Bessie Road, Lee Riley. Proposed replacement of an existing pier, fixed floats and ramp. Representative is Cape and Islands Engineering. Owner of record is Kristen S. Riley, trustee, 6 Ned Beese Road and Riley Trust. This is a notice of intent, and the DEP file number is
433263.
3263. Okay.
I have a respectful request.
Yes.
Can we really try to like go a little faster? Please.
But he's been so patient.
I know, and I don't want to cut off your time, but we've been at this almost for 3 hours, and so just if we can all
I will do
agree to
my-
it.
I will do my best.
Great. Thank
Good
you.
evening, sir.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant for this project located at 6 Ned Bessie. The project, and a recap, is the reconstruction of existing decks, stairs to access the waters of Mashpee Pond, and replacement of the existing floating pier with a new aluminum pier. The resources are, of course, Mashpee Pond, land under the ocean, land under the water, the inland bank associated with Mashpee Pond, and then the Mashpee Inland Bank, which is all the way at the top of the slope. The proposed work will not clear vegetation. There are some cut trees on the site, but the homeowner did receive approval from staff at Conservation for the removal of those trees that were cut at the site. So the proposed work includes a limit of work along the existing edge of clearing, so no clearing outside of the existing lawn areas is proposed. The replacement of these structures are in the same location. This structure have been in place since the mid-'80s, 1980s, and instead of just replacing all the components that are damaged and rotting away, the homeowner wants to completely revamp the structure. So the project will be replaced in kind to the same dimensions for the decks, the stairs, and the lower deck at the edge of the pond. The existing pier and float will be replaced with an aluminum rollout float. It's a pre-manufactured aluminum pier. It is proposed to be seasonal. So during the season, they'll roll them in, hinge them to the existing lower deck, similar to the condition that's today. Today, there is a ramp and then the floats on the water. So it'll be similar, except that instead of floating, this will be above the water. And it will be sort of fixed but removable for the purpose of the pier. No increases in footprint for the decks and the stairs. There is a small reduction in footprint for the pier because of the grand size of the Terminal T float section and the proposed rollout piers, which are going to be 4-foot by 8-foot sections. There is roughly a reduction in square footage. And I know I'm going to be asked, so I'm going to go through that number. So the existing footprint of the ramp and the floats is 243 square feet. The proposed rollout footprint of this 8 by 4-foot aluminum section is 192 square feet. If there's any, we did receive response from DMF, and I believe staff received that same response from DMF. They do suggest a time of year restriction for in-water work that produces silt. That's for the purpose of the fish in the lake. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Where will it be stored when it's taken out?
So at the lower deck,
So it'll fit on it, so it'll just
Right.
like fold up. I think you said fold, maybe?
they're removable. So
Okay,
each 8-foot section detaches from the next one.
okay,
The wheels can be detached. So the sections get stacked and the wheels get stored on top.
okay.
So when the pier is installed into position, do the wheels stay on it?
Yes. The wheels become the foots of the pier. Yes,
And then it's just wheeled out?
yes,
So it's wheeled in and out year after year?
yes.
Just, I'm a little concerned about ruts that would, year after year, start to show up.
Probably.
How does that play out?
So I don't know if anyone actually ventured to walking down the steps and along the shore. It's very pebbly, this shoreline. So don't think of this shoreline as a sandy shore or bottom on this lake. It's very pebbly. So I don't think the rotting may be a concern. The alternative to this, which is a little more difficult, is those that actually have a foot, but then to remove them, the person has to go into the water,
Right.
detach everything in the water, and taking it out, which makes it a lot more difficult for a homeowner to do the work. The wheel out system like this one is found in some of the other piers in Mashpee Pond. I've seen them on the south shores of Mashpee Pond. Can't think of another location for these wheeled outs, if not in other towns in Cape Cod. It just makes it much simpler and faster just to remove the system out of the water.
Just a question, curious.
We did propose it for another project a couple of months ago with this board, Crescent,
32 Crescent.
32 Crescent, thank you. And that was going to be stored on a pathway that we allow the pathway to be larger because of the homeowner's conditions. That was also a wheel out system on, I believe it was the same pond, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Okay, I'm set. Any questions? Steve? No, we're all set.
I'm afraid Alex is going to get angry.
I'd ask from the public, unless there's somebody online, because we don't have any public left here.
No, there's no one online.
Nobody online. Dan,
Can we do it?
All right.
comments?
So resource areas, inland bank, estimated habitat of rare wildlife, and land under water bodies and waterway. Proposed work consists of reconstruction of existing dock, deck, and stairs. Fixed ramp and floats will be replaced with aluminum sections on wheels. Wooden deck and stairs will be removed and replaced in kind. The Division of Marine Fisheries commented with a time of year restriction that no in-water work should take place from April 1st to June 30th of any year. Scope of work will be an improvement to resource areas on site due to poor condition of existing structures. Recently removed trees on property were approved by the agent due to insect damage and infestation and was creating a danger to the existing home, deck, stairs, and deck and stairs for the dock system. Agent recommends a close and issue with the condition adhering to the marine fisheries time of year restriction.
I'm hopeful for you, Rahul.
Okay, I would accept a motion.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, make a motion for close and issue for notice of intent for 6 Ned Bessie Road, Lee Riley, with the condition of no in-water work should take place from April 1st to June 30th per the Marine Fisheries recommended restriction.
For
Second.
any year, right? Any and all years.
Yes.
In perpetuity, yeah.
Yeah, perpetuity.
Okay, so motion made and seconded. Further discussion by commissioners? We're good? Okay, I will take a vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yeah.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Whoa. Rock and roll, Raoul.
The skunk is
Before
off
you
the
leave,
boat.
Raul,
We did it.
I have
I
another
was
one.
on several,
I was gonna say, you got one more.
He's on the next applicant.
We're not done.
He's not done yet.
Was that you two?
Yeah.
no, wait, and
Sorry, I shouldn't have been disrespectful, I think all that.
let me just put this away.
No,
Oh, my goodness.
we're all a little,
I have no disrespect.
We still have business.
we still have business to talk about.
Okay.
You know this.
We're doing it.
Now calling the 621 hearing. 44 Waterway, Linda H. and David A. Pierce, after the fact request to amend order of conditions 0433197 for bulkhead repair and reconstruction. Representative is Cape and Islands Engineering. This is an amended order of conditions.
So I have to recuse myself in this one. Should I leave the room?
You can stay, but
Just don't make any
we
faces.
still have a quorum. We're
No, I
good.
just said it.
Okay.
I know too many people here.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant and homeowners of this application at 44 Waterways, which is an amendment to a prior order of condition that was issued for the reconstruction of the house. It was a complete raise and rebuild with a pool in the backyard. Pretty sure everybody remembers the rainstorm we had in early August.
Yeah.
Massive rainstorm. It caused a lot of problems to the existing site, and the existing bulkhead failed following the rainstorm and the water that was coming out of Waterway Road. This is one of the lowest areas on the site, and at the corner on the street side of this property is a catch basin, and all the water just comes down through the property. As the pictures show, the revetment failed. I'm sorry, not the revetment, the bulkhead failed, and emergency certificate was issued by the Conservation Department to promptly address and repair the work with the condition that an amendment to the open order of condition be filed. So this is what we filed, an amendment to the open order of conditions for the house to include the repair that already took place. So the repair consisted of realigning the existing bulkhead, installing and replacing some of the damaged piles. There are more piles than there was before. Introducing what we call drain whip holes on the bulkhead. The former bulkhead did not have drain whip holes. So now we have whip holes every 10 feet on the face of the bulkhead, so that alleviates the water pressure that builds up behind the bulkhead itself. Now, in the prior order of conditions, there was an existing vegetative buffer on the upland side of this bulkhead. The permit for the house included additional buffer, but also the replacement of what was a prior mitigation buffer as Rosa rugosa with alternative or different native species. That whole area, of course, is disturbed when the work took place for the reconstruction of this bulkhead. There is trap rock immediately behind the bulkhead. That's for drainage, but that will be under the new vegetation once everything is established. So even though we show on the plan that strip of crushed stone, that's for drainage purpose. That's completely the entire length of the bulkhead. It's going to be below the loam layer and the planting matter, of course, separated by a filter fabric to prevent the fines from filtering into the stone. But we need that stone layer to actually allow the weeping holes or the drain holes to work as they're supposed to. But the entire area is going to revegetate or be revegetated back to the order condition for the house. So in terms of footprint, the alignment is still the same. There is more piles installed to secure the bulkhead and not have the same condition happen again. Essentially, that's the project that took place. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you. What's the additional number of piles that are there? Just offhand, do you know? You doubled them, or triple
We did
loom?
have that calculated here. So essentially what happens is, in the gap of every existing one, there's a new pile.
So you double.
So we have 20 piles, so approximately 10 new piles.
Okay. The storms aren't going to get any easier. I don't have any
This spacing, if I can add more, this spacing of piles is very aggressive. It is very close to each other. But what happens was the existing ones that were in good condition, they were realigned and pushed in. The ones that broke, of course, had to be removed and replaced, and then additional ones in between were installed.
Yep.
All right.
Questions? We're good?
As long as the native shrubs that are put back are kosher with the staff, I'm good.
Yeah, that mitigation plan, I believe, is staying the same from the original.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
so,
how much loam is on top of that crushed stone?
our standard.
I don't
usually
have
3
that
inches.
answer, but typically what I've seen, there has to be a minimum of 8 inches for proper growth of native vegetation.
Yeah.
So I would suspect if you want to add a condition to the prior list of conditions, that a minimum thickness of loom be installed.
What do you think, Alex? Do you think 8 to 12?
With that, I
I
would just,
just want the crushed stone to work though,
yeah,
Yeah.
in the, like, the drainage properly, so,
Well, you've got fabric on there that's going to stop any infiltration down.
Right.
So if it's going to work, either with or without the loam, that's not going to make any difference.
okay.
and if you're going to add any more loam, just make sure you know how much clearance there is right now before the top of the retaining wall. That's the biggest thing, because you can't say 8 inches, then it's 2 inches over.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't,
what I mean?
I don't really want
So-
to get into that.
I would say as much as possible,
Right,
feasible,
feasible.
yeah.
Yeah, and one of the issues that I spoke with Dan about, because when I did my site visit out there, the erosion control was damaged and worn out and things like that. So, you know, I'm gonna make an assumption, because I wasn't there during the heavy rainstorm, that during construction, that this contractor didn't properly prepare his site for erosion control coming off
Right.
the road.
Right.
And that's what causes damage, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's a much better product, because of, you look at the space in the pilings and say, okay, that wall was gonna fail one way or another, whether it was 2 years from now or 10 years from now, that wall's gonna fail. So now we have a, better wall there.
One of the biggest issues from talking to the crews that did the work was the piles originally, when the walls originally installed, were jetted to refusal, but then over time, the soil just went away. So in reality, they really weren't that deep in the ground. So when the wall failed, it just didn't have much, the footings didn't have much base there in the ground. So that was why it failed. So now they jetted them to refusal to the appropriate depth for what we have now, and that's with the doubled amount of piles. I'm not too worried about that. The drainage ditch I did look into. So that is an overflow drain that does go directly, as you can see in one of the pictures. It does go directly down into the water. So that's not the best. It's part of the HOAs, their whole system there. I talked to DPW as well as buildings, and we're trying to make an initiative to get HOAs and areas to not comply, but to upgrade or make better their catchment systems.
Yeah, I spoke
'cause-
with the Peninsula Council
Yeah,
manager, and he said, yeah, that's been there when they built the
Forever.
road for 40, 50 years ago, that's been there.
our records were pretty
Yeah,
much
it's
that.
original, he said, yeah.
Yeah, so, and it's tough down there a little bit because it's not public roads, so it's kind of working with them, but they have been open to hearing, to
I
talking
wonder if
about
that,
it.
some of that kind of stuff could fall under like an MVP grant type thing, even though it's not public, but it provides a public benefit for that to be
Yeah.
improved.
Absolutely. Okay. I'd accept a motion.
Mr. Chair, make a motion to close an issue and amended order conditions for 44 Waterway.
Second,
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Alex?
yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
I abstain.
Sandy?
Yes.
Oh, that's right, Marjorie's out, yes, I'm sorry. Again, I didn't.
Yes.
Yes. And I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Before you leave, I was on several site visits over the last 2 weeks. Still notice that Cape and Island signs say Conservation Commission.
Oh, yeah.
They should not say that. I know I've mentioned that to our agent, and I know our agent has talked with Cape and Islands Engineering. I would like to stop seeing Conservation Commission on those signs. It's a very misleading partnership, if you would, between this board and your company. And there is no partnership.
I feel like we talked about that like 18 months ago.
We talked about that quite a while ago. And I brought it up twice. This is now the third time that I've brought it up.
I remember that.
I really think that should come off.
Yeah, a couple of the new projects, they're gonna have it. And very misleading.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Earl.
You did it, you got 2 approved. You're the only one.
You got to, I was gonna say you got to stay for the whole meeting, but you're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Run.
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Have a nice.
So I'm going to back up to pre- and post-hearing agenda items. We do not have any meeting minutes, but I am going to ask a question about our scribe.
Yeah, so
Brad, is he still with us, or?
I don't know 100% what's going on. We've been trying to get a response for a long time. He did reply today that he could not make it tonight. That's all we got. So, so we are going to have further discussions to see what's going on.
Because we've got quite a few sets of minutes now that.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing minutes the week before Christmas. I'll be doing all the back minutes to get them caught. Yeah, oh yeah, for the whole week, literally for the whole week, yeah.
So is he okay?
So, parents are sick. So it's,
Yeah.
I'm not pushing it, you know what I mean?
I shouldn't be asking, I'm crying.
Okay, so I move to our discussion items. The first one is the Community Preservation Committee. It's an application for open space and recreation plan. The plan has been submitted by the Environmental Oversight Committee on behalf of, I believe, David Whedon, the chair.
Yep.
And they're looking for us to give some input for that application and to provide a letter of support. And I'm going to turn it over to Alex for,
Yeah.
she's much more knowledgeable about this than I am.
Yeah, so the EOC submitted a request to the CPC for $100,000 to help pay for the update to the town's open space and rec plan. The current, it's not current, the open space and rec plan that was most recently done was done, I believe, in like 2009, and then it expired in 2017. For the past 6 years, Mashpee has not been eligible for state funding to match land acquisition, land management, different sort of rec grants. So if we go through this process and we update the plan, it's a community-led process. There would be a consultant that this would hire. The community would be sought for input, the Concom. In some towns, the Concom is like the applicant for it and is like the initiator of it. The EOC put it forward and is looking for the Concom to support it. So really, it's a leveraging tool and a planning tool to get community buy-in, and then we can be eligible for land grants to be able to do acquisition.
Why wouldn't they?
Right. And it benefits any group working in this town on land acquisition, on recreation improvements, any of it. So it's, I mean, we won't be working on it for at least a year if they approve it. It will be starting maybe next fall, but it's gonna be a valuable process, I think, for the town.
As the representative of the commission to the EOC, I would thoroughly encourage you to support this. I think it's extremely important, given the fact that 2017 was a long time ago, and
Yeah.
this thing really needs to get updated. Any other discussion or comments? Well, then I would entertain a motion to support this and send a letter off to, I believe it goes to the CPC.
Yes.
Chair is that, it would be Arden Russell.
Yes.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Marjorie. Is there a second? Thank you, Sandy. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion carries unanimously.
Dan,
Goodness.
I am happy to write the letter of support and give it to you so that you don't have to take on another thing. Okay,
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, you got your hands full
Yeah,
with
I'm
Drew
fine with
being
it.
sick right
Yeah.
now, and, yeah.
yeah.
I got
Great.
minutes.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah.
That's a big help. Okay, anybody would like to address Mashpee water quality? I know we could be here for a long time talking about that, but
Next time.
unless it's something,
I'll just say we have a new wastewater person.
Oh.
He is fantastic to talk to. I highly recommend it.
yeah, I haven't met him yet.
Make sure you
and
have an
I-
hour.
I know he's busy, but I would like to have a conversation with him at some time in the near future. I don't
He
know
has
if we-
fantastic ideas. I just talked to him today for 2 hours, so.
Does he intend to get around to the boards and meet?
He wants to meet everyone.
Yeah,
He does. I don't know if he intends to come to a meeting, but he
Right.
wants to talk to everyone.
okay,
He's great, so.
okay.
The other item, well, and it might come up, it is on here, but the harbor management plan, the draft is out for review and comment. It's like the comment period, right? So I was just thinking about it under water quality, but it'll come.
Yes,
Or maybe
and in addition to that, the hazard mitigation plan,
Hazard mitigation
the
plan.
draft of that is completed, and the comment period is
Now,
started yesterday, and it runs to December 22nd. I already have a page and a half of comments that I've started.
so I was mistaken. It's not the harbor management plan has the comment period. It's the hazard mitigation plan.
Hazard mitigation
Yes.
plan.
Okay.
Yep. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. It's a pretty big file. It's emailable. I could send it out to you guys if you,
It's like 300 pages.
yeah, but it's,
The link, you can
it's
email the
easier
link.
to just, it's easy, I'll send the link and
We
go
don't have a lot to sign tonight.
from there. One other thing, there was a lengthy discussion last night at the planning board about a joint meeting to take place between conservation, zoning, Board of Health, and I believe planning, but I'm not sure. The new Director of Community Development, Evan Lear, wants to bring these boards together to discuss looking at language for the new raise and replace article that will be brought before the town. We all have environmental concerns, zoning, planning, and Board of Health. He thought that was a good move. I don't know when that's going to occur, but I believe it'll be soon. And as soon as I have more information.
That'll be very soon. The raise and replace revisions are something that are being attacked very soon.
Right, so that's coming, so. And I'll turn the rest of the updates over to you, Dan, if you have anything on there that you wanted to.
Not really. We have the Mashpee River Restoration Project application going out in, I don't know, 8 days, 10 days. That is from the tribe. So the tribe will be applying for it. The town of Mashpee, Conservation and DNR will be assisting with it along with APCC. So it should be good. That's for $3 million to come up with assessments and waterway plans and hydrology reports for the entire Mashpee River north of 28. And then we'll be reapplying to have all those projects done. One of those projects is the culvert on 28. The Route 28 culvert is 6 feet separated from where it should be. And it's all filled in with trees because it's that old. That culvert is literally about to fall into the river. If that were to happen, there would be zero migration of herring at all. It would stop them dead in their tracks, literally. So that's going to be addressed through a fish passage grant. That's going to be very, very diverse because that is a state highway. So it's going to be a lot that's involved in this, but that has to be done because the culvert's just falling in, so. So that's where we're at. That'll be applied for the 19th, and we will know soon after that.
Awesome.
Okay. We have no other additional communication or correspondence? Any additional topics that aren't anticipated? Alex, something you'd like to chime in with? No?
I don't think so. I'll make a motion.
If there is not, I would accept a motion for adjournment.
Move.
Thank you, Alex.
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Any problem with that? Marjorie, yes? Sandy?
Yeah.
Steve?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. So we are adjourned at 9:10.
Is that